All right, guys, we're gonna call, we have a joint meeting, January 18th, joint meeting with the Winthrop Town Council and the Winthrop School Committee. I would ask the council clerk to call the roll of the town council first.
Council DeMarco.
Yes, here.
Council Honan.
Here.
Council Fusillo.
Here.
Council Belcher.
Here.
Council Flockhart.
Here.
Council Aiello.
Here.
Council Ruggiero.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here.
Thank you.
Please call the roll of the school committee.
Jen Powell.
Here.
Julie Barry.
Here.
Suzanne Leonard.
Here.
Gus Martucci.
Here.
Suzanne Swope. Here. Jim Lettieri for the town council
Yes.
school.
And I will say that I will be voting as a president of the town council. I'd ask everybody to rise, please, for the pledge, and ask Councilor Honan to lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the sole purpose of this meeting is to elect a citizen to fill a vacancy on the school committee left by Valentino Capabianco pursuant to the Winthrop Town Charter, Section 5, Chapter 1, and I will read, we have a lot of new people on the council and one on the school committee, so just to keep everybody informed of how this process will work. If a vacancy occurs in the school committee, housing authority, or board of library trustees, the remaining members shall give written notice of the existence of such vacancy to the town council. The town council with the remaining members of such board, in this case the school committee, at a joint meeting will fill the vacancy in a timely manner by a joint vote. The person chosen to fill any such vacancy shall serve in that office until the next regular town election, at which election the balance of the unexpired term, if any, shall be filled by the voters. So now I'll just give you a brief explanation about how this process is gonna work. I will read into the record all the applicants for the open position. I will entertain a motion to formally have names placed in nomination. Once that name is placed in nomination, it would require a second. I will then entertain a motion for discussion or evidence. I will also ask the nominees if they wish to speak for up to 2 minutes. We will then entertain a motion to close the discussion and move to a roll call vote. In the situation of our joint committee, we have 13 total members. So a candidate must receive 7 votes to be elected. If more than 2 names are placed in nomination and no one receives the required 7 votes on the first roll call, we would drop the lowest vote total from that first vote. So if it was 6-5-2, the 2 would be dropped, we would re-vote on another roll call. And we would do that until somebody had the 7 votes required. So at this point, I will ask for a motion. I will first read into the applicants that we have received have been from Lane Petrie, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Celeste Henanon, close? Hinonen, I was close. And Robert DeFelice. So now I will open the floor. I will ask for a motion to open the floor for nominations.
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilor Flockhart. There's a second by School Committee Member Martucci. The floor is open for nominations. Do I have any nomination? School Committee Woman Swope.
I nominate Lane Petrie.
There's Lane Petrie's name's been put into nomination. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second by Councilor DeMarco. Are there any further nominations? Councilor Barry. School Committee Woman Barry.
I nominate Celeste Heenan.
Celeste Heenanen's name is put into nomination. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilor Honan. Is there any further names to be placed in nomination? School Committee, man?
Robert DeFelice.
Robert DeFelice's name is put into nomination. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Fusillo. Are there any further nominations? I will ask for a motion to suspend and stop nominations. I would ask each candidate, first I would ask each nominee if they are willing to accept the nominee position. Celeste, are you willing to accept?
Yes.
Mr. DeFelice, are you willing to accept?
Yes.
And Ms. Petrie, yes, you are. Okay, so all the nominees are willing to accept the position. I will ask each nominee if they'd like to say anything. You don't have to, and I would ask to keep it to 2 minutes. And the first one nominated, I believe, was Ms. Petrie, so I will ask you first.
I didn't prepare to say anything, so I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay, and you don't have to say anything, it's just,
I've gotten to know a lot of you through my campaign for this past election. My name is Lane. I work as a public school administrator right now in Boston. I've lived in Winthrop for 6.5 years. I'm a parent to a kindergartner here in Winthrop Public Schools, and I now own a small business in Winthrop. So I do have a vested interest in this community as a taxpayer, as a parent, and as an educator. I have a familiarity with public school budgets, and I think that my skills that I have acquired and built over the past 6.5 years that I've lived here would lend themselves to be a successful school committee member. So, thank you.
thank you. Ms. Tenen. Yes, Celeste.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Celeste Hanonen. I'm here tonight as a parent. I decided to run for school committee as a parent. I have 3 small children in our school system, and as well as nieces and so many friends with children, and my children's friends. And I ran for school committee initially to give a voice to those parents and families in our town, and to speak as a parent, and to have a voice. And I am not an educator. I love education. I am a business finance manager, so I do have a different perspective. But I think our school system has great educators. I think we have a couple of great educators on the school committee already. I think I would lend a great different perspective as a parent in this town, with that voice, and I think that I would complement our current school committee members. So I hope for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeFelice. Bob.
Thank you. I'm a resident of the town, educated in this town, lived here my whole life. Actually was a teacher, administrator, and a coach for 20 years in the community. I've always had a keen interest in what goes on in this town. This has always been a big part of my heart, even though I went off to Bentley University to become the athletic director. I've always had an interest. I ran for school committee after I left Winthrop and got the job at Bentley, and lost to Tony Evangelista by 17 votes. And he's become a great friend since then. But I was changed, my job changed, and got promoted, and didn't have the time from that point on, and I didn't want to run again and not be able to fulfill that obligation. Since have retired, finally, and saw the opening, and I am very, very interested, always have been. And as I said before, all of my kids have gone to school here, and even my grandkids. So I think my background in this town, what I've known in education, in higher education at Bentley, gives me some sort of a background to be qualified to fit the position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will say, and I can speak for all of us, we thank all of you for putting your names in. It takes a lot to put yourself out there like that, and it's greatly appreciated by the town. I will now entertain a motion for discussion.
Motion.
Motion by School Committee Woman Barry, second by School Committee Woman, Chairwoman Powell. And the floor is open for discussion. Would anyone choose to have discussion or evidence on any of the applicants? Councilor DeMarco.
First off, not just in this meeting, but in the next meeting, we're lucky enough to have some really great candidates that have put themselves out there, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you. I've been trying to, I think I've reached out to all 3 of the people who are going for this position. First off, Coach DeFelice, I mean, you're a legend in this town. I mean, like, I can't say enough how much, like, I appreciate you and everything you've done for this community. And if you were to run this election, whenever the seat is up, I would be holding a sign on the bridge for you, no question. The bottom line is we've had 2 girls who have been running for this seat since the beginning. And for that reason only, I'm only going to consider those 2 ladies for this seat. Celeste, I was actually really, really impressed with your campaign. You know, I think I think you would make a great counselor. School committee member. You finished 4th. I was really considering you for the position, but then you sent the email that had you back out for the position. I understand sometimes, you know, it's an off-the-cuff reaction. You get upset, you make, you know, whatever it may be. But the one person who has been steady the whole time has been Lane. And I didn't know Lane before she decided to run for this position. You know, one of my favorite things about the last campaign, because I had to run, was getting to know Lane. And the fact that Lane has been in the race, has never wavered, has stuck to every principle she has, I intend to vote for Lane tonight. And that's just because of how consistent she has been.
Any other discussion? Councilwoman Swope, School Committee.
Well, I too want to thank everybody who ran. It's really wonderful to see that more than one person is interested in this position. It strengthens our town to think that we have people interested in taking a volunteer position in the school committee. So I do appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you very much. I too would support Lane Petrie.
Any other discussion?
Oh,
I'm sorry, keep going, I'm sorry.
Her particular background is not a background that we currently have in this committee. Her interest is in behavioral analysis, and she does work in the Boston Public School System. That gives her a unique understanding about budget, which is critical, of course, to all of us. But in addition to that, she also knows some of the opportunities and the challenges in a school committee budget, which is different than just any other budget. She has a deep understanding of social and emotional health. And I think we've all come to realize how critical that role is in our schools, and I know that she would make a great partner. I know that in her superintendent, we also have strength in that. But this brings a perspective from another school system, Boston, which is, of course, different than ours, but I think that she has that kind of in-depth understanding of individual education, which I'm very passionate about. She holds a bachelor's, as you probably know, from BC, and a master's from UMass Boston. She's also a parent of a kindergartner, which means that you're tied at the hip for a very long time in Winthrop. So for all those reasons, I do appreciate her candidacy, and I do support her.
Thank you. School Committee Woman Barry.
Yes, thank you, and thanks to for all of the candidates that are in consideration for this evening. I am and have always been in support of Celeste Heenanen for this position, more so today than ever, for a trifecta of reasons. The first being that she ran a tremendous campaign, and the voters in this community voted her into the 4th position. Therefore, I feel that she is the rightful winner of this seat. I don't believe that the 13 of us in this room know more than the hundreds of votes that she got, albeit for a rule in the charter that makes that not the case. So I think that's unfortunate, and I think that that's something that, as a school committee and as a town council committee, I think that that's something that we should look into and consider changing going forward. Second, Celeste has a financial business acumen that is not currently represented on the school committee, and I think that that would be an invaluable asset to have as we look to budget management and looking towards other ways to save and spend money. And lastly, she is a passionate mom of 3 young children in this community, and she's very involved, and she knows what's going on in these schools at an intimate level. And I think that she would be a tremendous asset to this town on this committee.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Councilman,
Yes.
I'm in support of Robert DeValise. He covered a lot of the stuff in his opening statement there, but he missed a couple of things, I think. Class of 1959, went to public schools, was student athlete. He went on to become a teacher, coach, and an administrator for 20 years in our school system here in Winthrop. He coached 2 championship football teams, by the way, state championship teams. He has 55 years as the baseball coach. Apparently he's got 33 years as the AD there. He oversaw a $7 million athletic budget. He oversaw the construction of 7 new athletic venues. Really important is that he also appointed the first director of equity and inclusion for Bentley Athletics, the first one. So I believe that, I really, with his resume here, I don't see anybody that's better than myself personally, so I'm gonna be voting for Robert DeFelice.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close discussion and move to a vote.
Motion?
Motion by Councilor DeMarco, Councilor Honan, second by Councilor DeMarco. All right, so we will start with the school committee. We will call a roll call vote, and again, 7 is the number needed to secure a position. If there is not 7 on the first roll call, we will then proceed to a second. Council Clerk.
Jen Powell,
Lane Petrie,
Julie Barry,
Celeste Heinonen,
Suzanne Lennon,
Lane Petrie,
S. Martucci,
Robert DeFelice.
Suzanne Swope, Gwen Petrie. All right, that's it for the school committee. Now on to the town council.
Yes, please.
Council DeMarco,
Lane Petrie.
Council Honan,
Lane Petrie.
Council Fusillo,
Robert DeFelice.
Council Belcher,
Lane Petrie.
Council Flockhart,
Lane Petrie.
Council Aiello,
Lane Petrie.
Council Ruggiero,
Lane Petrie.
President Lettieri.
Lane Petrie.
Lane has 10 votes, 1 vote Celeste, 2 Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you again, all. I would encourage Ms. Petrie to get in touch with the council clerk, town clerk, and to be sworn in, and you will be eligible for the next school committee meeting. And thank you all for putting yourselves out there again, and we encourage further participation in the future. Any motion to adjourn? Second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, the ayes have it. Thank you. I'd like to call to order the council meeting of January 18th, 2022. I will say for people out there at WCAT, if you want to call in on Zoom, the phone number is 646-558-8656, and the ID number is 8958-5567-591#. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Council DeMarco,
Here.
Council Honan,
Here.
Council Fusillo,
Here.
Council Belcher,
Here.
Council Flockhart,
Here.
Council Aiello,
Here.
Council Ruggiero,
Here.
President Lettieri.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Councilor Aiello to lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate and welcome Councilor Aiello, Councilor Fusillo, and Councilor Belcher to their first formal meeting. And that's enough of the fun stuff. So now we'll get right to the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 5th's meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Flockhart, second by Councilor DeMarco. Any additions, deletions, subtractions? I do know in the original minutes there, has that been changed?
That's been changed,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those who attended that meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed and those abstentions?
Abstain?
One. Okay, for general information, we have coming up next Tuesday is a vote for the Northeast Vocational School. They are they are going through the process of the SBAC. They have been approved. They now have to, because of circumstance, they have to go through the 11 communities or 12 communities, and they have to have a vote. That vote will take place next week. We are fortunate to have Charlie Lyons with us via Zoom, as a consultant that works for the vocational school. Charlie was here about a month or so ago, and we welcome him back, and we would like to give him the time needed to tell us a little bit about the project. Charlie?
Mr. President, let me first congratulate the new members. Can you see me?
No.
See your name.
That may be a good thing. So why don't we just leave it that way, because, but I'd love to just chat to you a little about the project. This, all of the regional voc tech schools in the state are anywhere from, they were all built between 1964 and 1977, and this project was completed in 1968. It's 53 years old. It's seen its time. It's served the 12-member town district admirably for the last 53 years. And it's in dire need of renovation. Even some of the communities that have had concerns about the cost implications of the proposal have all agreed that it's woefully inadequate to meet the needs of the 21st century education for vocational technical education for district students. It's also the most popular school district in the state in terms of the number of students desiring to apply for vocational education. Currently, it can only accept about 41% of student applicants. And what that means is there's a significant number of students from a multitude of communities that just can't get in. And so the proposal is to try to right-size the school to raise its current population of students over time from 1,300 to 1,600 students. With a lot of help, particularly led by Bob DeLeo, your former state representative and former House Speaker, and augmented by your current state representatives, the MSBA awarded the district the largest state grant in MSBA history, $140.8 million, to help pay for the cost of this district. The remaining cost is about $176.4 million or so, will be bonded over a 30-year period, with the upon the lion's share of the bonding indebtedness not occurring until fiscal year 26. The cost will be done strictly on a per pupil basis, adjusted every year based upon modifications in enrollment. And of the current 1,281 students, Winthrop's population is about 57 students. And so your cost will go up next year about $82,000 for debt service for the next 2 years, being flat in fiscal 24. Will go up to about $250,000 in fiscal 25, and will plateau out at about $450,000 beginning in fiscal 26, assuming your percentage of population stays approximately the same. We've been working very hard with your existing state delegation to do everything we can to acquire more state funding to reduce the local share of this project cost. Matter of fact, your state representative, along with representatives from the Northeast District, led amendments to try to reduce the cost of this by trying to acquire additional ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money, in the last appropriation to try to minimize the cost to member communities. As you know, because you're all, experienced town councilors, the three of you, I know, and I congratulate the three of you who got appointed or elected recently, because you've been involved in your community for many years. There's another round of about $1.9 billion of ARPA monies that will be distributed by the legislature over the next 7 or 8 months or so. We're hoping to get a portion of that to minimize these numbers. Can't tell you how much we've enjoyed working with your town administrator / police chief. I know he's wearing 2 hats, but he's a big guy and he does a great job for the community of Winthrop. And just appreciate the support we received from the town council in the past for this project, and looking forward to positive action from the voters of Winthrop when they consider supporting this project at the polls next week. I will tell you the maximum reimbursement rate a school district can receive from MSBA is 80%. The reimbursement rate that this school is receiving is 76.84% of eligible reimbursement cost. We've complained to the MSBA that the definition of eligible reimbursement cost needs to be modernized. We've written letters to them on behalf of the superintendent and the school board. We're asking to expand the MSBA advisory board to take into consideration the unique costs of MSBA costs for vocational school districts and their extensive costs for construction. And we're looking forward to working with your board and all of the boards and all the city councils in the district to try to get as much funding as we can to reduce the local burden over the course of the next several years before you start paying the more significant impact in fiscal '26. I hope that explains the mathematical part of this project.
Thank you, Charlie. Do we have any questions from the council? I can't thank you enough, Charlie. I know that the vote is next Tuesday, and just to let the public understand how it will go, it's a 12-member vote. It is not a per-town vote. It's a plurality of everyone that votes. So if there are 50,000 people through the 12 through the 12 cities and towns that vote, if there is one more yes vote than no, it passes for everyone. And the vocational school has been a tremendous asset for our students and for our town, and we thank them for all their help. I think this is you look at the dollars and you say it's an awful lot of money, which it is, but you look at the unique characteristics of a vocational school, and like Charlie was talking about with eligible reimbursement costs, there are certain things that the SBAC won't reimburse for example, athletic fields. And in their situation, there's a lot of unique equipment they have that they have to purchase. So that's unfortunate for that. Winthrop has been very proactive in looking at how we would go about funding this if it did pass. But I know the council, and I can't speak for this council in its totality because it has some new members, but the council did vote to support this project in December, and I stand by that vote myself. And I think the education of our children is foremost in my mind, and the fact is it's not a one-fits-all educational system, and the vocational schools offer very unique skills and skill sets that are extremely valuable to the children of our community. And I thank them for their help, and I encourage people to go out and vote next Tuesday. I believe, and Charlie, if you could correct me if I'm not there, most elections are 7 to 8. I believe the time of this election is different. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the election is 11 a.m. in the morning on Tuesday till 6 o'clock at night. By state law, it can't be more than 8 hours. The school committee made it 6 hours, which is longer than most of these types of elections. It has to be uniform throughout the district. It was done in consultation with the town clerks, the 12 town clerks in the district. And it will be 11 to 6 o'clock on January 25th. And I can't tell you how impressed I am, as I always have been, with the political leadership from the town of Winthrop. I've worked with a number of folks there, as you know, on the MWRA project getting back in the 1980s. And I used to tell everybody that the most important thing about a community is And the most important thing, the most valuable place in a person's home is the quality of the classroom closer to that person's home. But about Winthrop, I used to say, it was very important, is the quality of the treatment plant down the street because of the negative impact it had on your community back in the 1970s. And it took a lot of money to fix that problem. And wouldn't have done so without people like Tom Riley and Peggy Riley and others. And so I'm just thrilled with the leadership from the town manager and all of the members of the town council and the state legislative delegation for their tremendous support. Can't thank you enough.
Again, thank you, Charlie. Any other comments? Thank you again, Charlie, and best of luck.
Thank you.
So other general information that I have, I just want to talk a little bit about trash. What more fun thing is there to talk about, right? So I was in contact with Mr. Schmidt from the Board of Health and just went over some stuff with him. And I just want to make some clarifications and bring everybody up to date as to where we are and how we got here and where we're going in the future. So obviously, at the beginning of this fiscal year, last July, we implemented a trash fee of $160. It's been, you know, it's difficult, it's a fee, right? But we're incredibly respectful of all the citizens that have all done the right thing, and we couldn't be more proud. As we go on, as we said, there will, you know, we're continuing to look at this, to look at any alterations we might need to make. But we made a commitment in July 1st, and that July 1st commitment, the contract kind of states that every individual, every residence has 1 barrel of mainstream trash and 1 barrel of recyclable trash. Now, in the past, with capital, our contract has always been, 3 barrels. Even though this barrel is larger, we did say that, you know, now we're being billed based on tonnage along with service. So it's impeccably important. We try to maintain the fact that, you know, recycling and doing the right thing, composting is so important, and it helps the town, it helps the environment, and it makes the planet a better place. So having said that, we did say that we would accept and capital would pick up additional trash if it was put out in a barrel that's covered. And we stand by that. We will be making modifications, I am sure, as we come, but I don't believe those modifications will come until the beginning of fiscal '23, which would be July 1st. We are still looking at items such as overage bags and fees, or potential costs for an overage bag, or potential abatements, or potential ability to buy a smaller barrel, or the potential ability to eliminate 1 barrel if you have a 2. We are looking at everything. We are being very conscientious about it. It's a learning process. We feel we're in pretty good shape now, and the thing about trash is we're at the mercy of the cost of the trash, because we are paying every week. We get a bill monthly as to the tonnage of trash. We have been fortunate in some ways that the trash and recycling costs disposal costs have come down slightly, but I just want to make everybody aware, we also did confirm a policy earlier in this fiscal year that the policy is pretty much as it states. The town picks up trash in 3-family residences or less. The town does not pick up trash in 4-family units or higher. And the DPW director made that announcement also, and we have been trying to live by that, the letter of the law, so to speak. So if anyone does have questions, I encourage you all to call Wendy Millar-Page, but no. I encourage you to either write to a counselor, feel free to call me at any time, or obviously you can contact Wendy Page. But, I hope that makes some clarification, and we understand this is a work in progress. This is a brand-new enterprise fund, and I think the town has done a really good job in rolling it out. And again, we can't do it without the residents and all their help and cooperation. So thank you for that. We now have 3 public hearings. The first public hearing is a vote that the town council vote the use of retained earnings in waterways fund in the amount of $48,854. And this motion will be coming before us in old business, and this is a motion that they use the retained earnings in the waterway funds in the amount of $48,854 for the purchase of a new truck for the launching and hauling of the Harbor Master boats. So I will ask anyone in the public if you have any comment, any positive comment on this item. Seeing none, does anyone have any negative comment on this item? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing to the councilors. Do you have any questions on this item? Wow.
I have a,
Yes, Councilor Aiello.
sure, thank you. I have a series of questions. I'm not sure I should go through all of them, but it's not clear to me, as an example, if they already had a truck and this is a replacement truck, if it's a new truck, what are we doing about garaging the truck? What are we doing about utilization? Is there a cost benefit between having our own truck versus the way we may have done it in the past? Are we looking at operating costs, cost of insurance, maintenance, life cycle, et cetera? And what's the health of the reserve fund with respect to other long-term obligations to keep its facilities in a state of good repair? So I'd like to see those micro issues as well as the macro view of the financial health of that fund to be discussed either in a discussion paper or have the appropriate people talk to a subcommittee or to the council in its entirety.
Thank you. We might ask Mr. Aiello to take a time out if he's taking this much time out. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I will ask the interim town manager to address some of those questions if you can.
Sure, no problem at all. So I spoke with the harbor master. The current vehicle they have was picked up at auction at MWRA. It's a 2008 pickup truck. It's gone through significant repairs recently. It's probably not going to make hauling those boats any more convenient over the next year or so. Generally, police cruisers are now taking 8 to 9 months to get them in. So vehicles are on back order, so we're trying to be thoughtful of that process. We maintain and keep up with the maintenance of this current one until we transition in. What we tried to get away from is people using their private vehicles, even going from there to the town hall or from there to wherever while they're working. They're in official town vehicles. So this would replace that 2008 vehicle. I don't, foresee that this is being a necessary replacement for this for another 10 to 15 years after this purchase. CFO did go through the exercise of looking at the reserve account, the health of the reserve account. He has certified to me that they can afford it and still have a reserve in there. I know Robbie's on the call, and Robbie wants to clarify any conversation he had with Steve Cerulli. Please do, Robbie. So I'm not sure if I got all your questions answered, but we did do a deep dive a little bit on this to make sure it was an appropriate purchase, that the town's money was being spent appropriately, and the need was there for it.
Okay. No, thank you. I think that you've largely answered it. It's a replacement for an existing truck, which is helpful. So we would assume we'd have lower operating and maintenance costs with a newer truck over a number of years, and they would assume that in the
Initially, the insurance would be slightly higher, and over
slightly
time,
higher,
it
so
would go
there'll
down.
be some offsets on that. Okay. And then there'll be no change in utilization or garaging or?
No,
any of that
so
stuff?
unfortunately, we can't garage every vehicle we own.
Yeah.
We still keep it down to landing.
Yeah.
And obviously, keep the same maintenance going on it as far as cleaning it and making sure the salt's off of it and stuff
Sure.
like that, just like we do with the police cruisers.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Aiello. Any other questions? Are there any questions, CFO Powers, Assistant CFO Powers?
Yeah, just to confirm on the harbor master, it has 96,000 retained earnings certified by the state as of July 1st. So we're using up about half of that for this. But along those same lines, we have a brand new boat, a brand new motor on the pump out boat that was just installed. So we've taken care of a lot of the vehicle expenses that are coming up. This is kind of the last thing that they're looking for. I know the truck has frame issues, it has electrical issues, and I believe that they have been using personal vehicles here and there to pull boats in and out, which just shouldn't be happening. And I know that the harbor master looked around to try to find any available trucks. Finding trucks has been a problem, but he was able to find this one at seemingly a reasonable price. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Thank you, Robbie. Any other questions on the council? And I will go back to, not to the public, as the public was asked, but I did not ask if there was any questions on Zoom for this public hearing. I didn't see any hands up, but I just wanted to confirm. All right, thank you. Okay, and we will take this up under old business. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Hey, Jim, there was one question in the chat, just where the truck will be parked.
Yes, on
The truck will
garage.
be parked down the landing, just the same way the other one is parked. If you drive down there now, you see it in the parking lot by itself over there.
Thank you. There's a motion by Councilor Jerry to close the public hearing. There's a second by Councilor Fusillo. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Public hearing is closed. Going to open a second public hearing. The second public hearing is that the council vote to transfer $35,000 from salary reserve account to various departments' personnel accounts. And this is a motion, again, to transfer $35,000. The accounts are listed below. They include finance, assessing, treasurer, town clerk, police, fire, ISD, DPW, and COA. This amount accounts for new contracts between the town and the clerical union, or take any other action relative thereto. I open the public hearing and ask anyone from the public if you have any favorable thoughts or recommendations on this item. I ask if anyone has any negative thoughts or questions on this item. Seeing none, and seeing none on Zoom, I will open this up to the council. Any council questions on this public hearing? And this item, again, will be brought up in old business, but if there's any questions right now,
Mr. President.
Councilor Jerry.
I'll just ask.
Absolutely.
I'll just ask the assistant, the interim town manager, if he could just maybe explain a little bit more what the logic is behind this, why, it seems like small dollar amounts to a bunch of different departments, and, one might be asking, is that really making a difference? But if you can just kind of explain the background, I think that would go a long way here.
No problem at all, my pleasure. So this is the result of a contract negotiations and settlement with the clerical union. That's why you see it spread out so many different departments. Clerical staff, we don't have a lot of them. So in the small amounts equal to the departments, they have more or less depending on the actual employee and what we owe them for back pay and stuff like that.
So for example, if the contract expired in June 30th of 2021, the contract was settled now, so this is retro pay from July 1st to January, whatever. And this amount is accounted for in a salary reserve line that we had placed in the budget in fiscal '22. Any other questions on this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and we will move on. Now we'll ask for, we do have one more public hearing for National Grid, petition number 304-78309 Terrace Ave. Do we have a representative from National Grid on with us?
I believe we do. We're going to wait, or it will be referred.
All right, we are going to refer this.
Oh, he is here.
He is here?
Yep.
Okay.
Where is he? Is this National Grid?
Only a user. Denise, I'm sorry, that user is muted.
Yeah, Tom's unmuted. I don't know if he's muting. I don't know, I'm not sure if that's him either.
I don't-
It doesn't
Well,
have
it
a name.
says he's here, right? It must be on mute.
Yeah, can you unmute yourself, user?
There it is.
Hi, this is Marion Reagan. I don't know if you're talking to me.
Oh, sorry.
We're glad to have you here, though.
Okay, National Grid, do you have a phone number?
Is there a new chat in the box?
He's saying he's gonna call.
He's gonna call you, okay, he's going to call you.
Is he not in the list there?
No.
You can search his name up there, or her name, I
Right.
don't know who it is.
Looks like his last name begins with N. I'll see it.
You can read that, huh? Good for you.
Say again?
You can read that.
Well, far away, but I can't read this.
Counselor Ayala, we're gonna have to make you tier 1 technical support.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. I switched computers in December, and I am so fouled up. Nothing's working, things disappearing on me. On the vocational school, was it $250,000 starting in fiscal year '25?
I think it's more money than
Okay.
250.
I believe this, National Grid, can you unmute?
It won't, it won't go into effect until, I think, not next fiscal year.
Are you 350-6168?
Play some dental music for us.
I would suggest if there's any public comment, we can
Right, yeah.
discuss the actual location and what they're trying to do before they are found.
Can you hear me?
Here it is.
Hey.
Hey, good evening. My name is Adila Ennabat from National Grid at 170 Medford Street in Malden. And I'm here on behalf of customer at 131 Terrace Ave in Winthrop. Here to answer any questions that you might have. To just give you a little background, this petition is customer driven. It's to serve them as a permanent service, and you will be underground. And we are petitioning on their behalf to install 2 3-inch conduits that will be 5 feet in the public way to the customer's property.
Any questions from the council? This again is referring to a property at 131 Terrace Ave, which I believe is the end of the street on Terrace Ave. I do not believe it involves any poles in the ground. Everything is underground. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions or concerns?
Just,
Chief Delahan?
yeah, if you don't mind, I know Terrace Ave, very small street, narrow street. Would you be blocking the entire street? Are you down further enough that other residents wouldn't be obstructed during the construction? And if so, what notices are we gonna be giving them? And I know there's some other older people up there that might have trouble walking from the landing, so I just wanna make sure they have adequate parking as well.
Yes, they would, and like this is the last house on that street, all the way towards the end, last house.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Jerry.
What's the anticipated timeline on this project? How long will it take start to finish?
I believe the customer had requested to do some sidewalk work there, and I think they already started that. And as far as the condo installation, I don't expect them, I can't really answer for the customer. Like I said, this is a customer driven It's not National Grid that will be installing those conduits. But I personally can, if I was doing it, I don't think it takes more than a day. But like I said, this customer has requested to do the sidewalk in front of their house.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Any members of the public like to speak on this public hearing? Anyone on Zoom like to speak on this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll be referring this to public safety. Now open the floor for public comment. There will be 2 public comment periods. This is the first. Former Council President Gill.
Thank you, Council President. I've come tonight to speak in favor of Karen Chavez to be appointed to the council. With all due respect to John and Kurt, Karen has a remarkable, outstanding background, and I'm urging you to vote for her. She served with great expertise, commitment, and dedication on Winthrop Finance Committees for many years, starting with the old Town Meeting Advisory Committee and currently on the Town Council Citizens Advisory Committee on Finance. She's been on that since our form of government changed from town meeting to town council. Karen's knowledge of finances is unsurpassed. I would hope that if she is appointed, that she would then become a member of the council finance committee. And given that, strict performance with the Citizens Advisory Council. In addition to Karen's financial related services and knowledge, she's served admirably on many committees with great knowledge and commitment. And one of the latest ones she served on was the middle school building committee, middle high school. And I think that particular committee did a lot of deliberations and probably one of the best committees we ever had in town. It was my pleasure during my term as council president to witness even more closely what a great asset Karen has been to our town. Therefore, I strongly urge you as our town council to take this opportunity to do what, in my opinion, is the best interest of you as a council, the people who work for the town, and the rest of us who are citizens of the town. So again, I urge you to nominate and appoint Karen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? John Macero.
14 Dolphin Ave, Winthrop. First of all, I just wanted to take an opportunity tonight to congratulate those who just joined the council. But second of all, you have outstanding candidates tonight who are running for this selection of Precinct 2. As a matter of fact, I got to interview a couple of them a couple of years ago, so you're great candidates. However, I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Karen Chavez. I had the honor to work with Karen while, before I became superintendent, I was on the finance committee with Karen Chavez and learned quite a bit of finance, town finance, with how she worked with us, and she was just very, very good in caring about all of the departments and really listens, and I think that that's important. The other thing that is, also is that, as former President Gill has stated, Karen was a huge proponent with the building project. And I know she went on to do the building project. She also did the Miller Field project. Karen did a lot of work with us and really is committed to the town and the district. And furthermore, I was also on a committee with her with the Vasella Scholarship. And so it just seems to all go full circle. And I think that she's deserving of it. I think the town would be best suited for her to fill that role. And it's nothing against the other candidates. They're all fine, qualified candidates. I just think her time has come. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any public, Mr. Schmidt?
So, first of all, Council President Lettieri and fellow councilors, I appreciate you mentioning the trash issue this evening, particularly recommending that people who have concerns and complaints call Wendy Page-Millar. and not the Board of Health, although we'd be happy to hear from them. But on a serious note, I'm coming here tonight to speak on behalf of John Munson for the Precinct 2 Council vacancy. I've had the pleasure to speak to a couple of you informally, but I haven't addressed the whole council. So many of you might know, actually, I was born here in Winthrop, Winthrop Community Hospital 70 years ago. Grew up here, went through the schools, and then went away to college and had a career in government and politics outside of Winthrop. Came back a few years ago. Bob Driscoll appointed me to the Board of Health, and I've been on the board now for 6 years. I've only known John for a little more than 4 years. Probably first met him when Jen Powell was running for the school committee. And I have to say that in that time, John has become one of my closest friends. And I have friends who I've known in this community for all my life. And there's two things I'd like to say. First of all, 2 words I'd like to say about John. Character and integrity. That's what John has, both in his business operation, as a family man, as a husband, as a father, and his parents and in-laws are both now in Winthrop. So he's bringing more people into the community. But I've seen him in his business, how he runs very ethical practice, tries to help people in the community. He's done a lot of work in the community. A couple of years ago, when there was a vacancy in the seat, when the council president briefly decided he was going to run for council president, John got in the race. He ran a strong race. Even after Councilor Terry got back in the race, John got, I believe, around 31% of the vote, which my understanding of the charter, if he got 35%, he'd be appointed automatically. So I know a lot of you have seen John. He's active in the community. He's made a significant contribution. I think he would come to this position as a good listener, which is one of the most important qualities in somebody as a public official. He's a great student of issues, but he has an open mind. He'll be a pleasure for you to work with as a colleague. I think he'll help bring people together, and I urge you to support him. Thank you.
Thank you. I see 2 hands up on Doug Chalmers. Are you there? Doug? There he is. Doug?
Unmute, Dougie.
He is unmuted, isn't he?
No, he's muted, he's muted.
Dougie, can you unmute yourself?
There he goes.
How's that?
There
That's
you go.
good.
Look at this stuff. Okay, Jimmy, I spoke to you last year regarding double poles in the town,
Yes.
and you gave me an explanation that the town was promised that there was gonna be action taken to start taking down these poles, and as somebody who drives around the town every day, I haven't seen a pole come down yet. Do you have any idea if they are gonna take down poles, or do you have any leverage with these guys as far as giving them permits to do jobs without any poles coming down?
We do have leverage to give jobs. We don't,
Not to give jobs, yeah.
well, not to give jobs.
To permit them.
To permit jobs.
Not
But
emergency.
we have been, and former Chief Flanagan was instrumental in at least getting us to the position where we knew what we have for double poles in. And you're absolutely right, Dougie. They seem to go up every year instead of going down like they've been promised. There were hundreds, I believe, on the list.
98.
98? Are we down to 98 or are we up to 98?
There, yeah.
Okay. But it is definitely something that's actively looked at because it's, first of all, it's an eyesore. Second of all, it's a safety issue. More importantly, it's a safety issue, but it is also just an impediment and an eyesore. But I will ask town manager, I'll ask town manager to speak first, and then I want Councilor Flockhart to address it also.
Yeah, so this usually is ran through the fire chief. I'll speak to the fire
Yep.
chief in the morning. I know there's been a little bit of a transition, but I know there's a list as well, and then who's the last one off the poles matters. So National Grid might not have control over other utilities that are on, and including our old fire alarm wire that has to come down too. So I'll ask him how many poles we have currently, and what's the update, and these discretionary projects, I think we can hold some National Grid's feet to the fire. I would recommend a resident requesting National Grid to do a conduit as one of those discretionary projects, right?
We are advocating for you, Dougie, but I also want Councilor Flockhart, who has spearheaded this effort also in trying to help you, but Councilor?
And we did question National Grid, and they determined, despite the fact that they initially denied it, but then checked and came back and said they had egg on their face. There indeed were 98 that they were responsible for. And we, at that point, they had requested 3 particular jobs, and we denied one of those jobs on the basis that they needed to take down double poles before they could go forward with that project. So they were not allowed to put up another double pole until more double poles came down.
Okay, thank you so much.
And we will get,
I know we're not the only town in the situation. I drive everywhere and I see double poles everywhere, but you're doing all that work down the 7th. And you see the poles in front of Scott's Auto, in front of the old dealer's / mortgage company down CVS. So they're doing all the center over and you got those ugly poles sticking everywhere.
All right, Dougie, thank you, and we will get back to you. There is one, thank you.
Congratulations and good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one more, Diana Viennes. Diana?
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, first off, I'm very excited about all of our new town council members. I think for the most part, I know all of you. But I will say, I think in terms of our new precinct 2 member, which I am a member of the precinct 2, I think what you're looking for and what you need is a partner that really understands the issues that is willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work. I know actually all of the candidates that are running tonight, and I think they're great people, and it's a tough choice. But I will say that our precinct in particular is facing some major issues. We've got the 40-yard bank situation. We've got Ingleside. We've got the Center Business District. I'm advocating for Karen to be elected for precinct 2 because she's already doing the work. She is someone that we don't have to kind of guess about whether or not she's going to do the job, because she's actually doing the job and is super dedicated to Winthrop. And she's demonstrating that on a daily basis without being asked and without any kind of reward to her. As a tech person, I'll like frame it in she's just a heads down individual. So I think that given the special situations that we're all in precinct 2, at the moment we just really need someone who's going to get into the details and figure out how we're going to come out of the situation that we're in. But again, it's a super tough choice, and I really like these candidates, and I don't envy you for the decision you have to make tonight, but I will advocate for Karen to be elected for precinct 2.
Thank you, Diana. Any other comments? Yes.
Hi, Rob Dwyer. I'm your representative for Northeast Metro. I just want to say thank you for your support and welcome to the new town council members. I wanted to, in the spirit of getting the vote out on the 25th, which, as noted before, is between 11 and 6 p.m. Winthrop has 3 locations, and I just want to share with everybody what those are for everyone here and for the public. That's the Old Middle School Gym on Pauline Street, the DeLeo Senior Center on Harvard Street, and O'Connell Hall on Golden Drive. And I hope everybody will help to get that vote out. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And just for clarification, the old middle school is precincts 1, 2, and 5. Golden Drive is precinct 4, and the DeLeo Senior Center is precincts 3 and 6. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Correspondence. Denise?
All right, I did receive letters of support. I did email them to all that I have received. I received approximately about 12 for Karen Chavez, and I did receive one for Kurt Milan in reference to the precinct 2.
Thank you. Committee reports, we do not have any. I'll say now, because we're gonna take it up in old business, though. For example, the two finance issues that we do not have subcommittees as of yet. We will need to suspend Rule 12 of the council rules to go on with that. We do have positive recommendation from the town manager, and we will discuss it more in old business, but there were no other committee reports. I will ask now for the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, just wanted to remind us, Meredith is here, so Steve Calary's at COMCOM tonight, that conflicted with your schedule, so we had to make some decisions of who to send where tonight. I will first yield to Meredith so she can get out of here a little bit earlier. She's been working long hours, and I appreciate it, and doing some vaccinations today as well. So Meredith, you could just jump in with your report.
Sure. Actually, I printed it off. I know that this has been, this is just like our latest, just in the last 10 days of our case counts. As you know, we're all aware, we've been in the midst of a pretty aggressive surge of COVID. So this is just a rundown of our confirmed cases between January 13th and January 17th. So for some perspective, our percent positive was reported last week at over 25% of the tests that were taken in the previous 2 weeks. So we're definitely at a much higher count than we've been in the last 2 years. I also want to kind of give some perspective to that, though. We know that at-home testing has been very, very popular. So even looking at these case counts and looking at percent positive, it's the first time that I really can't trust the data. It's always been my crutch through this. So, but with that, what you'll see, and this is kind of why we will see a decrease of the percent positives. Looking at these numbers, we're trending down. Our 1-day total of just case counts that were reported on PCRs to the state, which is the numbers that we received, January 4th was our highest in the last 2 years at 138 cases were reported in 1 day. And that was just that doesn't obviously include the home tests. But it is helpful to kind of see the trend going down. It's just a short window, but I'm hopeful, and we will see that 25% be, I can't say how much lower, but we will see it go down finally versus, going up as much as we've been doing. So we, as the chief said, we've been hosting vaccine appointments on Tuesdays in my office. We're usually running them between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And today we did a mixed bag. So we did boosters for 18 and over. We did pediatrics, 5 to 11-year-olds for either first or second doses. And we're also doing the 12 and ups, either for boosters or first or second doses. So today we had about 26 people come through, usually kind of first in the morning and then later in the afternoon. I'm also working with East Boston. They're interested in potentially hosting a clinic 1 day a week in Winthrop, which would be great for a lot of reasons. I don't know what the demand's going to be, but they also will provide language support, because what we're hearing is that I was working with the family liaison at the schools today, and she was saying how difficult it was to get the information out to the non-English speaking families. And so at kind of the end of tonight, I had probably 3, 4, 5 families come in that we were able to get them through. But I definitely see a need for better language support around our vaccine clinics. So East Boston would definitely be able to provide that. And if it hasn't been put out yet, it should be going out either tonight or tomorrow. But the state announced today that home tests are available for households throughout the Commonwealth. There's a lot of information in the press release when it does go out on. Right now, it's capped at 4 tests per household. The language in the press release makes it sound like as the demand diminishes, there will be more opportunities to get them into households. There's also a separate a separate program going on where the public schools now will be receiving at-home test kits because they're taking a step away from doing aggressive contact tracing just because of the demands on the school nurses and the school staff. And also just want to highlight that I had a very nice conversation with John Morgan, who voiced some concerns about these home test kits and about those that are visually impaired. And we're trying to come up with a way, which I think we've kind of come up with, for those that are sight impaired to use these. And most likely it's going to be that they can call my office and either myself or one of my staff members are happy to go out and test the visually impaired with the home kits too. That's kind of it.
Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith. And just to point out, the 138 is January 4th, immediately after, New Year's Eve. We all know that the cases skyrocket when you get in close contact indoors with people without masking or social distancing. This, we should be prepared every year to see between Thanksgiving and New Year's, this actually escalate and then come back down. And then around Easter, you'll see another little bump. This is what we've been seeing and we've been talking about the last 2 years now. So we can almost predict when we're going to see those spikes and when we're going to see those coming down off the spikes and leveling out. And as the weather gets warmer, we have much fewer cases. So just to keep that in perspective a little bit. I know it's a big number. When she sent it to me, 25%, we were usually around 4%, 3%. So it's a big jump. I understand it frightens people, but this is something that we have to learn to adjust and continue through and to surge through and push our way through and safely do so. So thank you. And Meredith gets phone calls from me about employees on a daily basis, and she's a great support. Just want to start with the Voc School. Obviously, they gave a great presentation last time as well as tonight. This is our equity in education opportunity. The Voc School is where some of our unfortunate individuals go either because they can't keep up the pace or for other reasons. And I think we share with the Voc School a large population from Chelsea and Revere that don't have this opportunity to get a grade school, so they go to the Voc. This is our opportunity to make the Voc schools on equal ground as good as Winthrop schools. Give them the equipment and the building they need to educate the people, our future plumbers and electricians and cooks and all kinds of other jobs and trades that they're learning there. Voc has always been very good to me as the police chief. Anytime I've called them and said, we need help with a student, they always said, we'll help you. So I urge the people to look at the vote seriously and vote with their heart. And the town will figure out the costs. That's the council's job, is to figure out the dictate of the populace in Winthrop. So thank you for everyone to consider that. City Hall systems, we've had a couple complaints on City Hall systems where parking stickers are not getting out to people. So we called City Hall systems today, Mike DeLuiso did. And actually 4,000 stickers have already been mailed by December 31st. There's 197 orders that are pending currently that are going out. So there doesn't seem to be a delay. We're working with the people who have said there was a delay, not the City Hall system's not getting back to them. And Mike DeLuiso called them and emailed that particular resident. If anyone's having problems with City Hall systems and getting your sticker for the new year, please reach out to Mike DeLuiso, who will head up and contact City Hall systems. We'll work with anyone who can prove to us that they emailed them and didn't get a response. We'll handle the ticket on appeal and make it right. There's a letter that went out that I know concerned a lot of people in town about lead in the water. Under the DEP mandate, we're required to make town-wide notification and not just to the specific people who might be affected by that lead in the water. So I know everyone's worried about this, and they should be. It's non-harmful lead at this point. Those 500 services that we still haven't replaced, lead pipes services, we have scheduled 100 a year. We borrow from the MWRA to remove those lead pipes and put 100 new ones in a year. So it's gonna take us 5 years to complete the actual project. But we're well underway. The DPW director apologizes he couldn't be here. He's at COMCOM tonight, handling other town business there. So they had this meeting scheduled at the same time. Electric vehicle charging station, Mr. Ruggiero and Council Christopher brought this to our attention early on in the Center Business Project. They're installed, people are using them, which we'll have to develop a policy over parking restrictions for those spots. I was very happy over the weekend to see people actually using them. So it's a good addition to the Center Business District project. Parks and Recs, I've asked them to inventory all parks and playgrounds before the spring comes, and to get a list together of what needs to be repaired or replaced. I've asked them to do this on a holistic approach and not a park-by-park approach. So if we come to the council for funding, there'll be one request articulated in that request. And if we get rejected here, we'll have to work other foundations, right? We'll figure it out. We'll figure out a way. The fire department did receive $15,000, or just over a $15,000 grant for a 3-piece set of battery-operated vehicle extrication tools from the Mass Department of Fire Services today. So that's one great thing we'll be requesting from the council to fund that. Budget discussions continue. Myself and Robbie are meeting with the department heads. We've asked them to actually input their budgets by this week into the budget software. And if anyone, it's a new software this year. I've offered assistance through my office, as well as Robbie has offered assistance to anyone that needs to come up and learn a little bit more about it. Just transitioning from system to system can be confusing. We want to make it as simple as possible. That will conclude my report. Thank you.
Questions for the town manager or Meredith? Councilor Ruggiero?
Yes, thank you. Man, I get your title wrong every time it changes. Interim town manager. Just want to follow up on the lead situation. So, if I understood you correctly, in 5 years' time, we will be a completely lead-free pipe system here in town. Is that the right way to think about this?
For residents.
For residents, okay.
For residents.
Okay.
You know, I would have to go back and check. Our older buildings that are municipal-owned buildings, like the E.B. Newton, for instance, we'd have to look at, replacing the lead pipes inside and not just the service into the house, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna say completely entirely.
Sure.
I am gonna commit to the residents' programs and houses, lead pipes running from our service into their house would be removed in 5 years' time.
Okay, and then if you are an affected home or an identified home that does have some level of lead coming into your house, have you already been notified? And whether that's by the town, or if you're concerned about it, where can you go? I know that some people have called me over the weekend saying that they went to Home Depot and got a lead test kit. Is this something that folks should be doing, or is this?
I know Steve works with specific households that the lead are dangerous, regardless of quantity of lead. Are dangerous to their health because of medical conditions, and we work one-on-one with those people. So certainly, if you have a condition, with that we can help with to expedite the process, we want to do that. The last thing we want to do is have anyone harmed by this. So I will get back with Director Caller and ask him.
Okay.
So everyone's been notified about the lead issue.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that everyone who's affected understands that your house is affected and there's no harmful lead going into your house.
Got it.
So let's double back on that.
Thank you.
If I could double up here, I think that.
Councilor Aiello?
Sorry. You told me it was okay. I'll learn. That would be good to have a public database about those residences, so people can just go check online and see a database and say, I'm scheduled for year 1 or year 2 or year 3 or 4. And I think that would help people trying to decide whether they need to make any interim arrangements, so.
Great point, and just on that point, anyone that has any construction that is gonna be going on in their kitchen area are required to replace the lead themselves. So part of the permitting process, so we're doubling down, anyone with new construction has to replace it themselves, and the town's coming behind anyway. Angers some people because, the neighbor got it for free and they had to pay for it, but we have to nip it where we had the opportunity to, in new construction permitting process, was one of the avenues there, yeah.
Great.
And these are DEP mandates, and we, you know, I do not get fined by DEP. We're following them, we're giving them a true commitment of 100 a year that allows us to borrow from the MWRA, you know, for that particular purpose.
Yes, and we have been committed to doing this for the past 5 years also, and we have done an awful lot of houses, and we continue to do it. We put resources towards it, and MWIA has been tremendous, giving us low and zero interest bonds to help us with that. Councilor DeMarco and then Councilor Flocka.
My question actually is for Meredith. We've, you know, I think we've kind of seen a little bit of a change from a year ago in how the game is going when it comes to COVID. So like last January, we had the drive-through testing sites. Every number was being recorded. What I'm seeing now is, at least with my friends, I'm seeing now they don't feel good. They take a home test. All right, we're staying home for a week. And they're not recording anything. And, you know, obviously 138, I mean, that's got to be a record for us in a day, like all time. So my question for you is, from a public safety perspective, what should we be doing in terms of tracking this? Like, should we be taking at-home tests? Should we be going out to the doctors and getting, like, how should we handle this to ensure that everybody's safe?
So I think we have to move our perspective to say that we probably will never feel 100% safe with COVID. We have to figure out how to navigate it kind of going forward. So I think looking, so if you've been exposed, if you know that you've been around somebody who has tested positive for COVID in the previous 48 hours before they tested positive, and you start to show symptoms, you should definitely take a test. Especially in those that are unvaccinated, if they've been exposed, even without symptoms, should take a test. You know, PCRs are the gold standard. It's hard to get those. It's loosening up a little bit now to be able to get the PCR test. Obviously, they're more accurate than in-home tests, but in-home tests really can capture positivity, especially when folks are symptomatic. You know, I also think, but I also caution to say, it can create a false sense of security to say, I'm gonna get tested, and I'm gonna, you know, be around my elders that are unvaccinated or have not been boosted or immunocompromised, and so without wearing a mask, right? So that's what we wanna do. We wanna have like this freedom, perhaps still wear a mask. You know, if you have some concerns about if you've been exposed or if you've been in like a bigger group, you know, if you've been to a Bruins game recently, or if you've been, you know, and then you wanna go and see your grandmother, who's in a nursing home, who, you know, put on a mask whether you have symptoms or not. Like, it's a good way to be. But in terms of testing, using PCRs, honestly, for those that have been exposed, a known exposure, and showing symptoms. And then other than that, you know, I also worry about what is the mental anguish around this, right? Of like the constant testing and feeling like, you know, we have to get comfortable in our environment and also be cautious, you know? If you're not feeling well, we as a society have kind of gotten away from this almost as a badge of like, I went to work and I was sick and, you know, all of this. Perhaps we have to reevaluate that and just say, if you're sick, you shouldn't be going to work. And it's the same as like kids going to school, right? Like, if your child is sick, whether it's a fever or not, like, you know, some of our respiratory viruses that are unnamed are pretty aggressive too. So, you know, just using some common sense and saying, if I'm sick, if I'm unwell, or if I know I've been exposed to somebody. Also, like, during the surge, you know, I mean, we're still in a very high surge. I don't mean to say that we're not, but, you know, I think all of us in this room can probably feel the weight of the, you know, between Thanksgiving and you know, up until about 5 days ago, of like, it felt like glitter. It was everywhere. Like, you couldn't, there wasn't a person in, you know, it's like, you know, so wear a mask, like, do those things. If you're on public transit, wear a mask. You know, but in terms of the testing, I think that these are great resources to have for, you know, to every household in the United States. I wouldn't use that unless you're concerned about being exposed. Now,
probably talking more towards the vaccinated, because especially with, we're seeing, and I will be able to share with you in the next 2 weeks, the strength of boosting has been, even though we're seeing breakthroughs, we're really trying to figure out a way to measure hospitalization and how sick people are getting, whether they've been boosted or not. And right now, the data here in Winthrop is showing that people are definitely less symptomatic and less of a burden on their health with their boosting. So, but if you're unvaccinated, I definitely would be more conscientious if there's symptoms and we're seeing with Omicron, definitely since November, one of the more striking things for me is the amount of reinfections that we've been seeing with folks. And this is where it gets really hard to look at, what I do, and one of the interesting things about my job is to really do surveillance here at the community level. And with in-home testing, I can't do that as well. So I like to look and see what the time frame is between reinfection and like how that, and I'm not able to really gauge that right now. So it's like running the gamut. So that was a long-winded answer, sorry.
No, I appreciate it, Meredith, thank you.
Council Flockhart?
Back to the lead issue.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the town has been doing it the best we can with the 100 a year. However, isn't it also true that some of our old houses also have lead in them?
Yeah.
And the town is not responsible for the homeowner.
Right,
has
for
to take care of
inside the
that.
building. We're only responsible for our feed into the
Right.
home.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other councilors? Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Meredith, for, again, all you do, and we truly appreciate all the work you've been doing, and you too, Terry. Now we have a school department report, and I was able to go to my first school department meeting. I do have a report, but we have a plethora of superintendents and school committee members, so if someone would rather give an update on the schools than I, so be it.
Let the band go ahead.
All right.
They'll correct you.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm a little nervous. I will say the vast majority of the meetings centered around the superintendent's report. Lisa's report focused on the challenges and successes of return to school from Christmas break. Attendance saw approximately 100 or so children per school absent. In terms of percentages, during a normal period, Winthrop Public Schools, I believe, averages around 94, 95% attendance. The week or so before Christmas, it would maybe dropped around 84, 85%, and a couple of weeks back, it was 74, 75%. So again, around 100 to 110, 115 students per school. The other challenge, obviously, is with staffing, and however, Lisa and her principals have been very prepared and ample support staff, including substitutes, keeping everybody ready to go. The teachers have been extremely conscientious. We're preparing lesson plans ahead of time. Obviously, the best news of all is that we have been able to keep schools open as well as all activities. And I can't thank the school department, the school committee, and all the staff enough for that. There also seems to be a downward trend in absences, and I think we saw that again this morning. And the mask mandate, I believe, had been extended through the end of February, February 28th. And that is my report. If anyone would like to add anything, please feel free.
Just that we have, been seeing better attendance over the past few days, certainly with our staff. Friday was a little bit of a blip. We had 19 staff members out at one school, and that happened to be at the Gorman Fort Banks. Not all absences are directly related to COVID. During this time, people still have family members that pass away, have family members that they have to tend to, and just have general illness on top of it. For confidentiality purposes, we're not revealing who has COVID and who doesn't. And from our students' perspective, we did get some feedback from parents. Council President was saying, we were averaging about 100 students per day per building out. So some of the feedback from parents was, some of that was related to fear in sending kids back during the surge after COVID, and that certainly is a parental right, and we respect that and appreciate it, especially for some parents who are not sending students back because they had some symptoms, maybe not COVID, but common cold symptoms.
So we appreciated, as Meredith said, those folks staying home when they felt sick. I can't tell you what an effort our staff has put in with no complaints to cover classes. And that goes for everyone from our custodial staff to our kitchen staff to our teaching staff, our ESPs, administrators, just stepping it up. And they're exhausted. And being able to do that and keep us open was huge. As I sit next to the former superintendent here and the superintendent currently in Stoneham, several more months, and he, we share the same pain. It's that getting up at 4:30 in the morning saying, oh wow, how are we gonna stay open? How are we gonna cover it? There's not a person that I can speak of in our district that has said I won't cover. That I will attitude has been extremely helpful, and it's gone on for over 2 years. So if you see a teacher, or you see a school member, or a superintendent, yes, with the cough syrup, they appreciate the thanks. We don't look for it all the time, nor do we need it, but when we get it, I can tell you it's appreciated. And I think, again, I've welcomed the new council, so I was remiss in not welcoming all the new members. So I think we had everything else right on.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to old business. So old business, the first thing on the agenda item is Precinct 2, nomination for open seat. And as I did with the first one, I will read the provision in the charter that, that stems to this. Section 211, filling vacancies of the council. If a vacancy shall occur in an office of a council at large, which this is not the case, during the term for which councilors are at large or elected, the vacancy shall be filled until the next biannual town election by a vote of the remaining members of the town council, and not less than a 7-day public notice to its intention to do so. If a vacancy shall occur in the office of a precinct councilor before the term for which the precinct councilors were elected, the vacancy shall be filled until the next biannual election by the candidate for precinct councilor at the preceding election who received the next highest number of votes without being elected, provided such candidate remains eligible and is willing to serve, and provided that such candidate received at least 35% of the total vote cast for precinct councilors in that precinct at the preceding election. And again, to have public notice of not less than 7 days, which we have done. If there shall be no candidate, the vacancy shall be filled until the next biannual election. If there should be no candidate that fulfilled the requirements, which is where we are now, it will be filled until the next biannual town election by a vote of the remaining members of the town council after not less than a 7-day public notice. So we are going to follow the same rules and procedures basically that we just did almost 2 hours ago for the school committee. And I will open it up for a nomination process. I will ask the nominees if they're nominated, if they would be willing to serve. I would then ask the nominees if they'd like to give a brief 2-minute verbal presentation. I would then have for a motion and ask for discussion amongst the council. I will close discussion for a vote, and we will have a roll call vote. If there are a successful candidate will need 5 votes. There are 8 members present, and there are 8 members of the council, so a successful candidate will need 5 votes. Not, so if we had 3 selected representatives, nominees, and the first vote was 4-3-2, or 4-3-1, the 4 doesn't necessarily win, the person would need 5 votes. If we did have 3 nominees and there is not a successful candidate on the first roll call, we will eliminate the candidate with the least amount of votes. We will then have a subsequent roll call. The issue here that we did not have with 13 members, we have an even number. So if we get to a point, at some point, that it is 4-4, we will stop it. We will have further not negotiations, but maybe negotiations, but there'll be further discussion amongst the councilors, and we will ask for another vote. If that subsequent vote still remains deadlocked at 4, I will call an impasse. We will then have it at a future date, and it would probably involve interviews of the candidate at a public meeting, and then we would have a vote at a future date, at a future committee meeting. So that is that. I will ask now for a motion. I will first say that there are 3 candidates, and the 3 candidates are, trying to think alphabetically if I could think really quick, but there is Karen Chavez, Munson Millar, I before you, Kurt Millar, and John Munson. So we do have 3 candidates, and all 3 candidates are present. I would ask for a motion to open up nominations.
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilor Flockhart, seconded by Councilor Aiello. I would open the floor for nominations. Councilor Fusillo.
Nominate Karen Chavez.
There's a nomination for Karen Chavez. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilor DeMarco. Another nomination, Councilor Honan.
I'd like to nominate John Munson.
A nomination for John Munson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor DeMarco. Is there a third nomination? Yes.
I'd like to nominate Kurt Muller.
Belcher. There's a nomination for
Second.
Councilor yeah. All right, we're getting too quick here. Councilor Belcher made a nomination for Councilor, for candidate Kurt Millar. There was a second by Councilor Ruggiero. There are 3 nominees in place. Are there any more nominees? There are none. There's a motion to close nomination. There's a motion by Councilor Aiello, second by Councilor DeMarco. Okay, now I will ask the 3 nominees. John Munson, would you be willing to serve in the capacity? Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Kurt Millar, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Karen Chavez, do you accept the nomination? Okay, I will now go, where do I go? I guess I'll go alphabetically again. I will ask Karen Chavez if she wishes to say anything. You have roughly 2 minutes.
Well, I think you all have my application. I sent you my resume with my application. I've been involved with the town since 1992 when I was first appointed by the then town moderator, Dave Hubbard, to the advisory committee. Change of government in 2006, Tom Riley asked me to serve on the Citizens Finance, which I have done. I've also served on a lot of other committees and searches, and I'm not going to go into all of that. I was born in Winthrop. I've lived here my whole life. My children are brought up here, gone to school here. My grandchildren, the same. My husband and I chose to stay in Winthrop. I've lived at 63 Lincoln Street since 1960, so I am not a newbie to Precinct 2. I've been there a long time. I worked with the hospital for 28 years. When it closed, I went to work down at Sturgis Street at the Bayview Nursing Home, where I stayed for 5 years until I was recruited to go to a bigger facility in Everett as the Assistant Director of Nurses, which I did do, and that's where I ended my career. I've heard through several people that you feel as though you need new eyes on this council. Well, you certainly got 3 sets of new eyes in November, and I wish them all the luck. And as far as everybody else on the council is concerned, other than the council president, nobody has more than 2.5 years of experience on the council. I feel as though I can do the job. I will start the job on running because I think I know what I'm doing. I know the charter. Granted, I have to go back and look at the charter, I think like everybody else does, but I do know the charter. I know the town, and I know the finances.
Thank you. Kurt Millar.
How do I follow up that? Well, so I tend to stay in the background for most things that go on in this town, observe, listen, so I can make logical decisions on the way I think. I chose when I ran this last time around for Precinct 2 to stick with it even though I lost. I reached out, asking to be on committees, joined in multiple meetings, every different area, listening, observing, to gain more knowledge. I cannot touch the financial knowledge that Karen has. Probably won't be able to do it for 20 to 30 more years. So, but that's part of my background though, is budgeting. I maintain budgets. I actually went through a $15 million budget at my company, reduced it down to $5.6 million. Just by looking at loss and how effective we can change things. So, and that's what I can bring to the table is I don't put it out there, I know finance. I know some finance. Is a little different from business to municipal. but I'm quickly catching on to what it is. I do have family here, generations. I don't put it out there that often that I have tons of family in this town. I don't think that should be any kind of factor in this. The main thing for me is what I bring to this is an open mind, different views. I have a servant leadership, which is what I do all day long at my company. You need to listen to the citizens and make decisions. Sometimes you gotta make those decisions, the hard decisions, that some people don't wanna hear, and accept that people are gonna be mad at you, people will be happy with you. And it's always a different balance depending on how you vote on things. So I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Kurt. John Munson.
John Munson, Precinct 2. Congratulations to the new councilors and to President Lettieri. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on my own behalf, and I think both of you guys are wonderful for volunteering your service, and I think they're both great candidates too. So I could say the same. I have a little bit of a vested interest as well. I have 2 kids in the school system. I have a family. My mom and dad both live on Winthrop Shore Drive. My in-laws live with us in the Maze. My sister's in the Maze as well with her family. So you could say I've got a vested interest. I'm a homeowner. I'm a business owner about 300 yards that way. So you could say I'm all in, as Austin Faison didn't say. But in addition to that, I have a pretty long history of commitment to community. And I'm not going to bore you with the list of clubs and things I've been involved with, but I do want to point out a few that I'm really proud of. I'm an officer at the Oddfellows, and we host 3 blood drives a year. That saves lives. That's real, and I'm proud of that. And I've also been hosting, I don't know how many, it's literally numerous and countless at this point, fundraisers and events at my studio. I'm a community guy. I'm a family guy, but I love to have people come together for good causes, and I've been doing it since I've arrived in 2003. I grew up in a small town in Maine, much like Winthrop. It's, very communal, small and close. Everyone knows each other's business, and probably too much, but everyone cares. And I do love Winthrop. It has a heart of gold, and I want to stay here, and I want to be a big part of it. All I've ever wanted to do in my life is to have a positive impact, and that's what I continue to do. I did run in 2019, as you guys know. I did get 31% of the votes, as you were there interviewing me on WCAT. It was a very informative. I got to learn a lot about it. I wasn't scared to meet anyone and talk to anyone, and I did. I spoke to you. I spoke to Stephen Cowell. I spoke to all the department heads. I got information. I spoke to you. We were face to face, but I still respected everybody, and I still want to work with everybody. And I think that what I bring to the table is a little bit different. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I'm a problem solver. I'm resourceful. I'm a people person. I'm a middle child. I like to bring consensus. I like to get people to think together, not divisively, and separate people. I like to get everyone together. And I think that I would probably bring a new set of eyes, as you said, Karen, with basically a way to solve problems. And we're at a critical juncture in Winthrop's history right now. We're at a big point right now. The decisions that are made in the next 2 years will probably affect us for the next 40 years. Between the old middle school, we need to keep it green, as Sam likes to say, but we also need to just solve big problems. Town manager needs to be decided, the public safety building. So it's not just about budgeting. It's about being a good, reasonable, rational thinker with good intent and good values and good virtues. I think I can bring that to the table, and I would be honored to serve. There's both constituents and the whole town of Winthrop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I will now entertain a motion to begin discussion. Motion by Councilor DeMarco, seconded by Councilor Aiello. Discussion is open.
I just wanted.
Councilor DeMarco.
Sorry. I just wanted to say that for me personally, these votes are the ones I hate the most because, being a small town, like you said, is like, I know all 3 of you really well, and it stinks when you have to vote against somebody you really care about. So, good luck to all of you. All 3 of you are more than qualified.
Councilor Honan.
Thank you, Council President. I do have a few words I'd like to say about John Munson. But first, I'd like to say I'd like to second what Councilor DeMarco has said. I know and like and have quite a bit of respect for all three candidates. But in regard to John, John has been an enthusiastic and vital member of this community for almost 2 decades. He's someone who has, for most of those 2 decades, dedicated his time and energy to Winthrop and given back to his community in many ways. He is a Winthrop business owner, as he mentioned, and a member and contributor to countless benevolent and community organizations. John is someone who, if elected as the Precinct 2 councilor, will make decisions based on what is right for Winthrop and his precinct, not what best serves John Munson, his family, or his friends. I think that what is very important about John is that he doesn't think he knows everything about everything. I would say that an important quality of an effective counselor is having an open mind and a willingness to hear and adapt to new information. I would argue that being open-minded and making decisions based on the facts and the feedback presented is extremely important. I believe that John is someone I could vehemently disagree with on a topic and who I could vote differently with on an issue, but who would still listen to my point of view and come to the next meeting as open-minded, courteous, and respectful, and willing to hear viewpoints other than his own. The town council should be a collaborative board that seeks to find the best solutions for the town of Winthrop. Who do I think I could work most effectively with to accomplish the goals of the council over the next 2 years? That would be John Munson. And that's why I support and I'm nominating him for the Precinct 2 council position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Honan. Is there other discussion? Wow. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just say a few words, not necessarily about a candidate in particular, but
just about
really following on Councilor DeMarco's comments. I had the distinct disadvantage, and I mean that seriously, of really not knowing any of the three of you. I'm sure Kurt and Karen could probably run me over in a bus. You'd have no idea who I am. I'd have no idea who ran me over a bus. I accompanied my wife to have a couple of pictures framed PC pre-COVID, which was 1,000 years ago, but didn't really know you in any other respect other than you really do great technical work there. So I took the time to talk to each of them on the phone, and really, I had very little to say, very little to contribute, because I'm new here as well. And my goal was to just listen. And I can't tell you how astounded I was at the different strengths and skills that each of the three of you have. And I think, like Councilor DeMarco says, each of you would be, I think, a terrific counselor and a terrific representative of the people of Winthrop and a member of this body. So this is a very difficult decision. I'll tell you, as I'm going through my decision-making process right now, I was listening for three things. One is to reflect what Tracy just said, teamwork. Who feels like they understand they're going to be part of a team and need to make the team successful, and to think about how they go about collaborating with fellow council members, with the town manager, and all of the ecosystem of town government and the citizens. The second is the broad range of interests that we end up having to face as a community to make sure that we move this community into a direction that continuously provides a better environment for all of our citizens here. And the third is sort of my pet peeve, if I have a pet peeve about government. And I've served on a number of public boards. I've served on a number of private boards over my life. And I think that one issue that government instinctively doesn't do well, and it has nothing to do with Winthrop. This is, by the way, true in Uzbekistan, in Lebanon, a whole bunch of places where I've worked, right? Which is that we do not do a good job of asset management. It sounds like that's a disease or something, but it means when we use taxpayer dollars to build a school, or to build a sidewalk, to build a street, or plant trees, if we don't take care of them, they fall apart earlier, they don't provide the service to the citizens that the citizens have paid for, and it's more expensive in the long run to the taxpayer, because then we have to do significant do-over work or replace them before the natural life cycle. This is technical, crazy stuff. And I feel like there was one candidate, and that's going to reflect my vote, who really stood out thinking about that stuff. And I think for this town, to ensure that it has a good financial future, we need to understand the assets we have. We need to have an asset management system. We need to understand the struggle to get things up to a good state of repair across the board. And we can understand our contingent liabilities as we go ahead so that, that we can then make the kind of investments we need to make to follow through on some of the big initiatives that we want to. So that's is going to frame my decision, and but I wanted to thank the three of you. It was delightful to get to meet you, and I hope this is just the beginning of collaborating with all three of you, no matter what the outcome is for this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. No? 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 I'll pass the gavel for a second. Don't lose it. And I'll, I will say some statements. First of all, it is, I have to agree with everyone that we're extremely fortunate to have three worthy candidates for this position. I wish we had this many candidates when we have the elections. And hopefully in years to come we will, because it's good. It's good to be involved, and civic involvement is fantastic. And I can't tell you all three how much I appreciate you applying and getting nominated for this, and I think you all deserve the nomination. And, in years past when we have gone through this, we've kind of just said, oh, we're just gonna nominate everyone who applied. And in this situation, we didn't even have to think about that, because we knew that there were three good candidates, and everyone, and they would be nominated regardless of us just saying, let's just make it unanimous. So again, I thank you guys for your time and for your effort. It is greatly appreciated. And whoever does end up getting the seat, that's fantastic. Whoever doesn't, I hope they remain involved, and there are many, many committees that we're always looking for help for. But I will say, every matrix I did, and I'm a numbers guy, but every matrix I did, to look for the most qualified candidate, Ms. Chavez was at the top. And her years of municipal service, whether it be finance, elections, site committees, school building committees, Millerfield committee, scholarship committee, finance subcommittees, town manager search committees, superintendent search committees, and I could go on. As much as I suppose, by definition, we are a political committee, I guess, we're the town council, we're elected, I hope this is not a political vote. My goal, if I have one top goal, is to make us a body that does everything right for Winthrop, regardless of views and everything else. We should try to stay as apolitical as we possibly can, personal opinion. We as councilors do have a responsibility and a duty, and may I add, a unique opportunity in this situation to select a candidate that will most help us move Winthrop forward in every aspect of the word. I looked at the recommendation letters, which I would be very happy to read, but I'm sure no one wants to listen to me. And I'm assuming that all the councilors did read them, but we had several precinct 2 residents. We had a past council president, a past superintendent, a former councilor, a former town clerk, several members of Citizens Finance, co-chair of the Millerfield Committee, and a member of the School Building Association, and just a very impressive list of diverse group of individuals in support of Ms. Chavez. And lastly, I feel I am, and the town is very fortunate to have a council that is energetic, driven, and committed, and wants to be successful for this great town. One thing we do lack, and it's not a knock, it's a reality, is some experience. And municipal finance especially. We now have the gift of being able to select a nominee that is custom fit to fill that void. And I'll end with a little, I was gonna do a hockey analogy, because that's what I like, but I'll do baseball because the numbers work better. So, there's 9 players on a baseball team, just like we have on the council, and right now we have 8 players. And we're missing whatever position, we're missing a shortstop. And we have that unique ability to pick someone, and we have a skill set that we're lacking, and that's, it's experience in finance. And we have the ability to handpick that candidate, and we have, in my opinion, we have an all-star and future Hall of Famer here in front of us. it would be a detriment to us not to select that candidate. And again, I can't thank the candidates enough, and you know, however this works out, I hope all three of you remain involved in the town because it makes Winthrop a better place. Having said that, I will entertain a motion to close, I will ask for my gavel then. Then I will entertain a motion to close discussion. There's a motion by Councilor Fusillo, second by Councilor Belcher. I will now ask for a roll call vote from the council clerk.
Councilor DeMarco.
I'm sorry, just to reiterate again, it's 3 people in nomination. A successful candidate needs 5 votes. If after the first round, no one's achieved that 5-vote plateau, we would drop the lowest vote count. If by some circumstance there are 2 equal low counts, we will re-vote with all 3.
Councilor DeMarco.
Karen Chavez.
Councilor Honan.
John Munson.
Councilor Fusillo.
Karen Chavez.
Councilor Belcher.
Kurt Millar.
Councilor Flockhart.
John Munson.
Councilor Aiello.
John Munson.
Councilor Ruggiero.
John Munson.
President Lettieri.
Karen Chavez. Now, the vote total was 4 for Mr. Munson, 3 for Ms. Chavez, and 1 for Mr. Millar. Again, Kurt is so qualified in so many ways, and I can't thank him enough for putting his name in, and I look forward to working with him in the future. I will now, we could have further discussion before we go to our second roll call vote, if so desired. If not, I would ask for a second roll call.
Councilor DeMarco.
Karen Chavez.
Councilor Honan.
John Munson.
Councilor Fusillo.
Karen Chavez.
Councilor Belcher.
John Munson.
Councilor Flockhart.
John Munson.
Councilor Aiello.
John Munson.
Councilor Ruggiero.
John Munson.
President Lettieri.
Karen Chavez.
John has received 5, Karen 3.
Okay, next order of business is a motion that the town council, according to the Winthrop Charter, select section 4, paragraph 4, accept the appointment of Council President Lettieri of Terrace Delahanty as interim town manager for a period of 90 days beginning January 25th, 2022 until April 25th, 2022, or take any other action relative thereto. I made the motion, just requires a second. Second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, Denise.
Council, there was a motion before the town council to use the use of retained earnings. Why don't I just read the motion? I move that the town council vote the use of retained earnings and waterways funds in the amount of $48,854 for the purchase of a new truck or launching and hauling of the harbor master boats or take any other action relative thereto. This did not go to committee because there is no committee, and we will entertain a motion for discussion of this to waive Rule 12 of the council rules, which would require that this go, like any motion, it would require it to go to finance, but we will ask to waive that motion, and then we will have discussion. It's a motion to suspend Council Rule 12 by Councilor Aiello. It's a second by Councilor Flockhart. All those in favor say aye. The ayes have it. We will now entertain any discussion on the motion. There's a motion that did not come out of finance. It was submitted. We did have a public hearing on it. We did, Councilor Aiello had some questions on it, which I believe were answered. This would come out of the The money for this would come out of the Harbor Masters retained earnings, which has a current balance of a little over 96,000 and would have a remaining balance, of a little over 47,000. Any discussion on the motion? This was properly advertised, and seeing the amount of it, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Counsel DeMarco?
Yes.
Counsel Honan?
Yes.
Counsel Fusillo?
Yes.
Counsel Belcher?
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart?
Yes.
Counsel Aiello?
Yes.
Counsel Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes. I move that the town council vote to transfer $35,000 from salary reserve account to various departments' personnel accounts listed below to account for the new contract between the town and clerical union or take any other action relative thereto. This also is going to require a motion to suspend Rule 12 of the town council rules. Is there a motion? Is a motion by Councilor DeMarco, second by Councilor Aiello. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. This is now open for discussion. This is resulting from negotiations and successful negotiations with the clerical union. It involves 8 or 9 different accounts totaling $35,500. The salary reserve balance was $295,000, now is pending this motion, would be $259,500. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Counsel DeMarco?
Yes.
Counsel Honan?
Yes.
Counsel Fusillo?
Yes.
Counsel Belcher?
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart?
Yes.
Counsel Aiello?
Yes.
Counsel Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes. Okay, now we go to new business, and we will elect a town council vice president. I will open up nominations for a town council vice president. Councilor Honan.
I'd like to nominate Councilor Stephen Ruggiero for vice president.
Councilor Ruggiero's name is in nomination.
Second that.
There's a second by Councilor DeMarco. Is there any further nominations? Councilor Fusillo.
I'd like to nominate Robert DeMarco.
Councilor DeMarco's name is placed in nomination. There's a second by Councilor Aiello. Any other nominations? I'll take a motion to close nomination. Motion by Councilor Flockhart, second by Councilor Aiello. Nominations are closed. Any discussion on the nominations? Any of the nominees wish to be heard?
Willing to.
Whatever you want to do, Councilor Ruggiero. You want to go first?
Sure.
Councilor Ruggiero.
I just, thank you, Council President, and I just want to thank my colleagues for just giving me a few minutes. I know we've made a lot of difficult decisions tonight, and this one I don't think is much easier, but, you know, I just need to take the opportunity to sort of advocate on behalf of myself. Over the past 2 years, serving on the council, I've learned a whole heck of a lot, and by all means, I don't claim to know it all, but I do have a much stronger understanding of how our town government works today and how it operates than I ever did before. Since joining the council, I was appointed to the Rules and Ordinances Committee. I was voted to serve on the Charter Review Committee, and I currently represent the town council on the board of CAPIC, and that's not something that we talk about, but that's a charitable organization that does a lot for low and moderate income people in Winthrop, Revere, and Chelsea, and really proud of that opportunity as well. You know, I've taken the opportunity these past years, and even prior to that, to just familiarize myself with how our town government works and how our community is organized, and how needs of the community also play into the framework of our town government. And I think I have a solid understanding of that. And I mean, at the end of the day, this is the type of position where we hope we never need to really exercise its full rights. But I think if in the off chance that the council president can't serve, I'm more than willing, able, and ready to step in. I have learned a lot about the council rules, Robert's rules, the town charter, and I know how our town government works. And in order for it to be effective, we need to follow these 3 sets of rules, and I really think that's the basis on what this position means. So I respectfully ask for each of your votes. And I know we've all spoken at one point or another, and no matter what happens tonight, I am excited to work with each and every one of you. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Councilor Ruggiero. Councilor DeMarco.
I'm gonna start by talking about Councilor Ruggiero, because this guy has been, he's been probably the person I've spoken to most over the last 2 years since you've been on the council. You've been a very good friend, and you're an excellent counselor. Okay, so you've always been there for me, and that means the world. Okay, you know, I do really like a truly collaborative environment when it comes to the council. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, have gotten calls from me and been like, oh, great, it's Rob again. You know? But it's true. Like, you know, I am somebody who wears my heart on my sleeve, and I call everybody, and I want to discuss it, and this is my team. You know what I mean? And, you know, I do understand that the VP role, you know, in a lot of ways is symbolic. You know what I mean? It's not like I get 2 votes if I'm the vice president. You know, and God forbid I ever had to step in, you know, I think I am ready to at least work with my team and work with all of you and be able to move forward and continue moving forward. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for everybody up here. You know, I want to develop Winthrop to be known as an inclusive community, a community that not only cares about the people who have been here for 60 years, but also welcomes new people here, new thoughts, new ideas. You know, not saying that old is bad or new is bad, but a truly inclusive community that welcomes everybody. And I ask you for your vote for vice president.
Thank you, Councilor DeMarco. I will now ask for a roll call vote.
Councilor DeMarco.
I don't have to say my name in the third person, do I? Me, Rob DeMarco.
Councilor Honan.
Councilor Ruggiero?
Councilor Fusillo.
Councilor DeMarco.
Councilor Belcher.
Councilor Ruggiero.
Councilor Flockhart.
Councilor Ruggiero.
Councilor Aiello.
Councilor Ruggiero?
Councilor Ruggiero.
Councilor Ruggiero.
President Lettieri.
Councilor DeMarco. Congratulations, Mr. Vice President. Okay, next on the, we're doing pretty good with time. Next on the town council agenda is to vote to appropriate certified free cash. This is, the free cash has been certified by the state, and there are a list how we have done free cash and continue to do free cash is we have certain accounts that free cash will automatically go into, and there are other accounts and recommendations by the interim town manager as to how best used some of the remainder of that free cash. And after that, it will be in reserve for us to use. I'm actually just trying to stall here so I could get to the crux of the matter, but
You can always revise the record, that's what they do in Congress.
how do I get rules before I get the?
You want a copy of
I have
Joe's?
it right there. So, on Friday, December 10th, 2021, the Department of Revenue Division of Local Services certified the town of Winthrop's fiscal 21 year-end free cash for general fund and stabilization funds as follows. And there was a list, and, well, the total general fund, $2,274,000 and change, Ferry Enterprise, $17,000 and change, Parks and Rec, negative $79,958, Rink, $27,271, Waterways, $96,129, Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, 1.64226 million. The town traditionally distributes free cash following the financial policies that strengthen strategic reserves and appropriations to correctly identify service delivery issues. This year, for the first time, a policy has been implemented which leaves a minimum of $250,000 unappropriated, strengthening the liquidity of the town, hoping to achieve a higher bond rating in future years' borrowing. And this is from the town manager, and they request the remaining free cash used in different formulas. And there's 3 pages of items which I don't think we need to read tonight. This is going to be sent to committee. So I will send this free cash to finance. And the next item on the agenda is Winthrop Taxi, which has requested an increase in the taxi rate. Any increase by the taxi company has to come with a recommendation and approval from the council. This is also going to be sent to finance. That brings us to town council subcommittee assignments. They are not ready, and they will be forthcoming at an appropriate time, and until they are, we will have to have these discussions at a council level. We hope to have committees by the next meeting. We also had, we also have discussion on the Charter Review Committee. So in the charter, it was written that every 5 years, basically years ending in 0 and 5, we would have a town charter review. And this would go over the town charter as well as all the ordinances. We had 2 in 2010 and 2015. We began another one in 2020. Did we lose everybody?
They were notified.
Okay. So we had another one in 2020. Unfortunately, we had COVID, which obviously put a major strain on the committee, and we also ended up having a special representative election, which took 2 of the committee members off the committee. So the committee, to no fault of their own, really wasn't able to do a deep dive. I did ask town council, town attorneys, for a legal opinion if we would have the ability to have a redo, so to speak, to establish a new committee and to have a 6-month period where we can do a deep dive into the ordinances and the charter and come back to the council with recommendations. I was told that we are totally within our rights to do that, and I am going to do that. I do not have a review committee set as of yet, but we will have by the next council meeting. And I would inquire for anyone who is so interested in potentially serving on that to reach out to the council. There was another new agenda item which comes from me, and it was calling for the elimination of the golf course area and the Little League, A field from being considered possible sites for public safety building. And my reason for putting that on is back in November 2020, there was a subcommittee meeting where we did that, and we asked for that, and we voted positively on it, and it was never voted in a council meeting. This is something that could be sent out again to committee, but we don't have yet. But my thought on this is, we had Castle and Boost do 2 reviews of these 2 sites. They were given these specific sites to look at by the former town manager. They also did a spreadsheet with a numbering system to recommend sites. These were not the top 2 sites, but the former town manager picked these 2 sites. We spent roughly $50,000 from Castle and Boost to do 2 studies for us over a 3-year period, and they came back with recommendations on how much it would cost. These recommendations go anywhere from $30-odd million to $45-odd million, depending on the site. Since then, why I want to, I think, and I said in my comments when I was sworn in, that a public safety building in some form, whether it be a joint building, whether it be individual buildings, whether it be rehabbing current structures, needs to be addressed by this council, and I gave my word that it will be addressed and we will have something to bring to the public. As when you're doing any decision, you know, the more choices you have, the longer it seems to take, and the middle school is a prime example of that. I think these two sites are unfeasible for a number of reasons. Obviously, structurally, when they did the work for this in the submittal, they did not take into account, and they said so, the site in terms of the soil. They did not do soil samplings, I don't believe. They did not account for pilings and structures, so to speak. They did not account for conservation and the problems that it might entail. You know, why this is important to me, and we might come to a decision that we maybe not take a hard vote on this at any time, but we maybe have a discussion that seems to be our intention. So, you know, it's out there, but what it's doing is it's a disservice for the golf course, because they're going to have trouble getting new members and stuff, because, you know, they're having questions. Is the golf course gonna be here? What are you gonna do? What happens if they build this? And the same with the A field, where we have, we have some very energetic and great new parents that have really taken hold of that and want to make improvements through Little League to do that. It also houses our high school softball team. And there's been reluctance too. Even Miller Field Committee had the opportunity to do some work that would have helped structurally some areas around the A field, and we were in that position where it was like, do we spend, you know, so to speak, good money after bad? We didn't want to build something and have it torn down in a year or two. I think this gives some clarity to these two organizations that they can go on and feel comfortable that those are not our first choices. Those are, you know, maybe somewhere down the road that's a potential, you know, if everything else fails. I really don't think we're gonna come to that. So I would like to take them off the table. I would entertain either a motion to send it to a public safety committee, or to just choose in deference to eliminating it, to giving a strong wording that we choose to not look at it seriously. Councilor DeMarco.
Discussion.
Thank you.
So, I was on the committee that took a look at this. I remember well, because it was in the middle of COVID and I was in Charlotte. So everything was remote. Steve and Barbara, I don't know if one of you was at that committee meeting. Yeah, Barbara, and I think Pete was the chair. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor Flockhart, it was unanimous. They didn't want, the public did not want those sites, as far as.
I wouldn't say the public.
Okay.
The committee.
No, the people calling in, they had a vested interest, obviously, in those sites. Right. But there was not, you know, there was not anybody calling in saying, no, we should build on these sites. There was none of that. I would make a motion to go directly to a vote. But that's just me.
Okay, well, there's a motion made. Is there a second for discussion, and then we'll continue the discussion? Doesn't mean we're voting.
Second for discussion.
Second for discussion. So the motion is made to eliminate the two sites, and there's a second. Councilor Ayala.
So let me sort of just pile on to the observations you made, which is, first of all, the golf course. So first of all, both organizations need clarity about whether or not their futures are in jeopardy or not jeopardy, and I fully agree with that. The sighting of this on the golf course, to me, was just astounding. I think one of the things that you subtly mentioned, which was Conservation Commission and environmental approvals, I just don't see, even if everybody in Winthrop decided that's where they wanted it to be, I don't think you can get it permitted, to be honest with you. And I don't know how that consultant could possibly come to that viewpoint. And on top of it, they say there are other costs to relocate the Little League field. There are other costs to reshape the golf course if possible. Those are enormous costs, and they're not included there. So I agree 100% that that was an ill-founded investigation and, in my judgment, a waste of money by the consultant. That being said, I worry a little bit about taking hard votes about, I think a sense of the board I'd be comfortable with to say that is not something anybody wants to pursue. But what I do worry about is the natural world of NIMBY, and I'm one of those people. I grew up in East Boston and said, get Logan Airport to go to Worcester, right? Never won that battle. But I worry about encouraging site by site, on topic by topic, people coming here and petitioning us to take things off the table before they're fully vetted and gone through. So I agree that those two recommendations are ill-fated and that they should not be pursued. But I worry a little bit about the precedent of a vote and what that might entail in terms of people coming to us for petitions to take a whole bunch of other things off of consideration for all sorts of other needs the town has. So I'll stop there.
Councilor Belcher.
I remember this being discussed at the fall forum, and I think there was some discussion about the cost of fill to bring it up to the level above the floodplain that it has to be. Is there some way that we can kind of meet in the middle of what Councilor Aiello was saying and say that this is a cost prohibitive expense to kind of take it off the table without it just being like we're saying, no, we're not going to look at it anymore?
Well, you know, I think the cost prohibited is by the citizens, not by the council. We would, you know, but I think to say that, you know, we could just say that the Miller Field was just done over.
Right.
The project cost over $9 million. 33% of that cost was for lightweight fill to make that field usable. Now, that's a football field with, you know, whatever, 40 kids running on it. It's not a public safety building with, I don't know how many tons of material on top of it. So, you know, the lightweight fill is one thing, the pilings, and we did the same with the school building committee with the middle high school. And we had to bring that to a certain level, 11 feet over the floodplain or whatever it is, and had to do it with numerous pilings, and the cost is extraordinary. I do think that, you know, again, my pledge is that we come forward with a proposal. I can't imagine coming forward with either one of these as a proposal, but Councilor Flockhart had a question also.
I agree with Councilor Aiello that we shouldn't be just taking these off without fully considering them. I don't deny that there are additional costs with both of these sites. However, we don't have costs on any other site. And there's going to be additional costs with any of those as well. You know, there is not a good site in this town for a new building. You know,
No.
There just isn't. You know, and it's been proposed, one of the things that has circled, is that we rehab the current buildings. But we would have to displace the current occupants, which would be an enormous cost. And there's no place to displace them to. So there are problems with any site we choose, and I don't think at this point we're ready to take anything off the table.
Councilor Ruggiero.
Yeah, so I would just echo some of the comments that have already been made. But ultimately, I agree with the spirit of this motion that these are not the ideal locations for the public safety building for a variety of reasons. With that said, I don't know if there is a fantastic spot to put this. I think that, you know, I think if we went around and polled all 9 of us, and or 8 of us, that, you know, we all have our preferences, but you know, I don't think there's a perfect spot for it. So I think ultimately too, what's important here is there was a study done that cost us some money, and I think that we get into it. We, the collective town council, past, present, and future, hopefully not, but we do these studies. We pay for them. We look at them for 2 weeks, and then they collect dust, whether that be metaphorical dust or physical dust, because some of these studies are old. So, you know, maybe it is worthy to respectfully ask the clerk to recirculate that to the council, just to see what the other options were. And if there really is nothing there, then there's nothing there, and we got to start from scratch. But you know, time, money, and effort was spent on that, so it's at least worth a look. But again, I agree with the spirit of this motion, but might be worth taking another look.
Any other discussion? And I will say that the studies that were done, it's the same study, and it was done 2.5 years ago when we all got a copy, and we all, I'm assuming, read it over carefully and studied it, and then we got the same opinion, the same study, last November, October, November. The only thing that changed was the price, and they just raised $1 million on each site. So this is not a new study, and you know, the fact that, and we can't go back on that, but the fact that that we paid good taxpayer money to do a study that, to me, was easily said to be infeasible to begin with, non-feasible, that's a whole nother question. But I do think to come to decisions, you have to narrow down options. And you know, I'm not talking all the time. Any talk is not, you know, maybe public safety building is the wrong verbiage to use, and maybe it's public safety facilities or whatever it happens to be. You know, I think this, to me, gives us a jumping point to say, okay, let's move on. And instead of saying, you know, I've heard, you know, 15 different things for the middle school, and until we narrow it down, you know, we can't be looking for a consensus because it's never going to happen. But anyway, if there's no more discussion, there's a motion still and a second to, Town Manager, did you want to add anything to this, please?
If you could. You know, there was a list of, I think, 7 or 8 sites there.
Yep.
And they would, you know, the consultants work for the town, right?
Of course.
And they get direction from then leaders of the town. Whether we agree with it, disagree with it, it's irrelevant. They sought that direction. They were told, you know, these are the 2 locations, and they did their job. Now, whether utilities issues on Cross Street, yes, of course, was there. National Grid issues on Veterans Road running down to the A-field, absolutely. Both of these sites, you know, were publicly available land. And that's what raised them up higher than privately owned land. So, you know, I think it's reasonable to say, we want you to consider some other sites here. You have a list of 8. But I also think, you know, some direction from the council, it's gonna be a policy decision of where we put this. You know, one of them is Walden Street, in the basketball courts. I just don't think that's a feasible spot. You know, it floods. It's a school zone. It's a drop-off pickup zone. It's a basketball court, right? So I don't think a public safety building serves you well there either. My point only being is they got direction and they followed the direction, and we shouldn't, you know, mark that against them. We should give them further direction, clarification, refocus them, and then have them come back with 2 other ideas. If a rehab is more what the council's looking at or wants, then we need to know that, because we need to do that evaluation. If adding public health in with public safety for a public safety facility, public health deserves, you know, to also be considered. There were, you know, thanks to Councilor Honan, long before COVID, she was advocating that we grow public health. And we did that, and it served us well during COVID. So I know some of the issues that weren't brought up in the prior design that we should consider even in the future designs, and that's including public health. And we worked so collaboratively with them during the last 2.5 years now. I think it's a misstep not to think about them and include them into any design. And then ultimately, you know, the council makes their decision, and it's up to the public to make their choice. Thank you.
Councilor DeMarco.
You know, after discussing this and after my original motion, you know, the more I think about it, I think there's definitely better language we can use, you know, putting this motion forward. I think there's definitely, I think a lot of us have some ideas now that we can think about. Maybe it makes sense, I'll use my privilege and table this for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we can all think about it. You know, I think, like I said, think about the language, think about how we want to word it, and move forward from there.
All right, sounds good. Counselor DeMarco has used his council privilege to table this to the next meeting. There's no more discussion on that.
Okay, not even to add in additional elements of what might be discussed, or?
Sure.
I don't know how.
No, that's
so
fine.
Let me just ask a question, because a couple of people have raised a particular issue that I think wasn't reflected in the scope that was given to the consultant, which is that there might be multiple facilities, right? Which gives us greater flexibility. And I think if we could have that discussion as well at the same time, 2 weeks from now.
I think we will have on the agenda a discussion about public safety facilities and
right,
everything.
okay,
Yes, this
perfect.
is gonna
Thank
not
you.
go away. All right, next item on the agenda is a town manager search committee. What I can announce tonight is that we have entered into a contract with a consultant, Paradigm Group. We did this, Council President Boncory did this right before he left. And we have been in discussions with them. This job has been posted. It is also on the town's website, I believe. I have had discussions with Paradigm, and they, they feel, the job is posted right now. I believe it's posted through January 28th, if I'm correct. They say that in normal course of searches, they will get dribs and drabs of applications early on, and within the last 5 days is when they receive the magnitude that they're really looking at in the majority of the applicants. And then they will also have their own selected candidates that they have worked with in other past searches. This committee will be announced at the first meeting in February. The anticipation is that we will have a meeting with the committee and Paradigm to just get everybody up to speed on how the process will go. We expect to, have upwards of, I don't know, in past searches, we've had anywhere from 30 to 50 candidates. And it's a weeding out process to get down to a dozen or so. And then there'll be an interview process for the town manager search committee to conduct in accordance with Paradigm and with help from Paradigm. And we will, the committee's responsibility will hopefully to narrow that down to 4 or 5 top candidates. At that point, we will conduct interviews here with the counselors. We will then cut down to a final of 3 candidates. At that point, those candidates will become public, and we will have public interviews for the citizens to look at, and then we will come up with a decision. As I said at swearing-in night, the hope is, the goal is to have a new town manager, with no disrespect to our current town manager. He's more than welcome to stay. This is no disparity to him at all, and we can't show our appreciation any more than his 2 stints. So we thank him for that. But, the goal is to have a town manager in place. I'm sure Terry is looking for a town manager to be in place before this 90-day period is up. But the goal is June 1st. The reality hopefully is a little sooner. But it's a process. And, we ask you to be patient. We are on it right now, and we are going to continue to do it. And we will name the search committee the first meeting in February. And the last item on the agenda I have is, I've also gone to legal and asked for clarification on types of meetings that we may be able to have, because I think, we do have a very young, in terms of experienced council, and I think it's important to everybody, we want to get a set of goals and priorities together for us to work on as a group. And I think it's important to have a committee meeting that is for that sole purpose. And I have been told that we can suspend council rules. We can have an open meeting. There will be attendance welcome. There will be no public comment. It'll be on Zoom. It will be on WCAT, but it will just be like a roundtable discussion for councilors to ask, to get through what our goals are as individuals and as a council, our policies, and how we're going to go about to be a very effective, creative, and successful council. So the plan for that is to have that at one of the February meetings. We would just look at the calendar. If February looks like a busy month, we will add an additional meeting. Right now, the current meetings in February, I think, are the 1st and the 15th. So I will give you more information on that. The other thing we are looking at is to ask KP Law to come in. They will give a training. We will wait, obviously, for Councilor-elect Munson to get sworn in. We would have a training for new councilors and for current councilors, if they so choose, get us more up to date with Robert's rules and charter questions and any other questions that you might be able to ask. There's never a bad question or an embarrassing question. It's better to have the facts. So I will be asking KP to come and do and that will just be an informal meeting among the council, obviously no votes or anything. And that will just be a training session for councilors, so we will have that, and I will give you more information on that. I will ask now for a second round. Yes?
Quick question on that. Is there any possibility we can combine those two events that you just talked about?
Well,
The
I
training-
asked for the ability to combine.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain things, obviously, we can't take any votes or anything else if it's, because that's a closed meeting. That's just a council
Right.
meeting, just for, you know, I think it's kind of boring for people to say, okay, this is Robert's Rules number 1.
Right.
And to say, you know, just to get people up to speed on council rules and procedural and stuff like that. The other meeting, I think it's good for the community to see it too, and to see how we interact and the goals that we have as a committee, that we want to try to move things forward by keep respect of what we have and make sure that we do it in a prudent and financially smart manner. But I will look into the possibility of maybe combining it on the same day or something like that.
Yes.
It might not be like back to back, but.
Just, yeah.
Yep.
Time.
Okay. Time. And we do have a second round of public comment. We are off the hook on the Zoom. So I will ask anyone in the audience for public comment. Council, yeah. Karen Chavez.
Karen Terrace, Precinct 2. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Munson. Also, Mr. Town Manager. I'm sorry. Is it possible to get a copy of those retained earnings, please? That you
Yes,
got on the certified cash?
yeah.
Is it gonna be posted someplace?
Yes.
I don't wanna
We'll
wait
get a-
till the budget season. I'd like to know that kind of ahead of time.
Yes.
And we will get a copy to the Finance Commission, the Citizens Finance
We're
Commission.
having
too.
a meeting Thursday night. Is
Yes.
it possible to,
Absolutely.
no, don't say absolutely.
I
To get a
will not
copy-
say absolutely, because
to
I
get a
lost
copy?
Robbie on the Zoom, and I'll see him first thing in the morning.
Okay, I do appreciate that.
To get a copy of this is public record anyway now. This is part of the agenda.
Oh, the ones that was discussed tonight?
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
The
I'll give you my
certified cash.
copy.
Yeah.
I'll give you my copy of the memo and the motion, if that's all you're looking for.
Yeah, and it
Could you
did,
send it to me so I can send it out to,
yes.
Sure, Denise?
the other 6, please?
send it
I
to-
appreciate
thank
that
you.
very
No
much.
problem.
Also, as far as the vote on Tuesday is concerned, if anybody listening or anybody in this room has any qualms about that, if you just go down to Miller Field and look at the Coach Tony Fusillo Fieldhouse, you can see what the vote did. They did an outstanding job building that facility. I don't know how many, and maybe Council President Lettieri knows, how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars was saved because they did the work for us. I do know too, at a couple of meetings, they said when the inspectors came in, the town inspectors, the plumbing inspector, the electrical inspector, they were so impressed with the work that was done by the vocational school. So hats off to them too. So please, get out and vote. I realize that we don't have the money, but as the interim town manager said, we'll find the money someplace.
I will say, Karen, that the vocational school students saved us upwards of $450,000 in their work. And the inspectors said that, you know, I don't wanna use the word that they said, but it was built like a bunch of bricks. And it will be there for a long time. It was extremely well-built. Their dedication was incredible. And this was the first time in the past, they used to build a lot of bigger structures, and they've been, you know, they haven't been doing that, a lot of garages and stuff like that, but this was a very good project for them. They were very appreciative of the opportunity, and we couldn't thank them enough for their work and their effort in that.
Just, I know Madam Clerk has the Zoom, do you have Zoom up and running? Do you have comments?
I have Zoom here.
Oh,
We
we-
just have no camera, but I do have Zoom.
Oh, that's great. Do we have any questions?
As of now, Jack Dowd.
Oh, we have,
I'll let Jack go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Dowd.
You still want to speak?
Enough.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Terry, what about Parkman?
Jack, go ahead.
Jack? Yes, we're listening.
Thank you. Concerning the water lines,
Yes.
Is this done by a lottery system or circumstances, such as if there's young children in the dwellings?
So Jack, the circumstances would escalate that property up to the front of the line if there was a health concern in that individual home. Right now, the director's not here, so I'm not gonna go into detail on how he chooses, but it's methodically being placed, all the lead lines in one area at a time would be done. That's the most cost-efficient way of doing it with the outside contractors.
Thank you, sir. That's just a question both. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And obviously, Jack, just if we have to try to, again, be cost efficient, if we are doing work in an area or doing some infrastructure work, we use that opportunity when the streets are open to replace those lines as needed. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Council President. So first of all, I want to just thank Kurt and Karen for participating and trying to be precinct 2 council. Let me tell you, I already think of Karen as the 10th councilor, because she's here at every meeting and she always has something good to say and she keeps all you guys on your toes. In addition, both Karen and Kurt often call into the Board of Health meetings and keeping me on my toes as well. So in addition to all the formal roles that Karen has, the informal roles that she does is really, really terrific, and so I appreciate you doing that. What a meeting you guys had. I mean, a lot of momentum decisions made both on people and issues. I want to praise Council President Lettieri for moving, the idea of goals and priorities and ordinance and charter review and all these things. It's really terrific. Couple comments I'd just like to make on a couple issues here. The issue on the public safety building, I really like what Councilor Aiello and Councilor Clark had said, and says don't eliminate things too early in the process, because it does encourage people to come forth and say, the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard, not the issue. Plus you got 4 new councils, and so they need a little time to look at the issue and have them weigh in. The other thing I would suggest, which is a little bit of a negative comment I want to make, is I was a little disappointed in the last couple of special elections when I saw town department heads endorsing candidates and taking prominent roles in those things. I think elected officials, that's what they're for. I think that's what unions are for. I think what people do privately in terms of contributing signs, nail lawns, and whatever, but I think the message it sends is that department heads are political actors and are making decisions based on politics, not on government. I think it sends the wrong signal. Even if the candidate wins, it sends the wrong signal, but if the candidate they support loses, it doesn't endear you with the person who gets elected. So I think, particularly if you're looking at, I don't know if there's a way to do it, but I would suggest that people in those prominent positions, you don't see cabinet officials do that in Washington, you don't see state cabinet people doing that. I think department heads really being out front with candidates, appearing in ads and stuff, it's not a good look. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
And on Zoom.
None on Zoom. All right, public relations, obviously, we do have the district-wide vote for the Northeast Vocational School. And it obviously, as Karen said, it's an investment in the future, right? And it's a $350-odd million school. I will say, I know our Representative Turco has worked on at least trying to get $100 million from the state, from COVID money. There were three vocational schools that are on the docket to be built. That $100 million would go basically $33 million a school, which would help reduce the cost. I know they are trying to get upwards of $300 million, which would be $100 million per school, which would be tremendous. I have been working on ideas and thoughts as to how we can do this that would be less intrusive to the taxpayers of the town, and I think I have some ideas that I'll share at a later meeting. But I do think that is a very important thing, and we do have upwards of 60 children right now participating in the VOC. The new school, if built, the capacity would go from 1,200 to 1,600, roughly 25%. And if you extrapolate that out, that means it's another opportunity for maybe 15 more of our children to go there and get those trade experiences that are so vital to so many kids. So I encourage you to go out and vote. So I'll open it up for public relations, we'll go around the table, Councilor Ruggiero.
Tack on to that point, it's not only children that go there, but there are also evening courses for adults who are working towards certain professional certifications. That's one thing I learned this weekend when researching the Voc School and that issue. So, yeah, it's a great benefit to our children here and also, you know, adults who are also looking to pursue careers in those opportunities.
Councilor Flockhart, you have anything? Councilor Aiello?
A grade school, the 25th, starting at 11 a.m., right?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilor DeMarco?
Town clerk, are we properly staffed for that?
Yes, we're all set.
Okay.
Councilor Honan? Councilor Fusillo?
College is definitely not for everybody. The Voc provides a great spot for people to learn a trade and get a job in the trade where they'll have a fantastic career. That's all I got.
Councilor Belcher?
All set.
All right.
Could I
Absolutely. We
reconsider?
will go back to Councilor Flockhart.
I just wanted to mention that my granddaughter, who was doing very well in the public school, is academically very bright, chose to go to a Voc school, not our Voc school, because she doesn't live in this district. But she is all of a sudden a new person. This school has done so much for her. It's just brightened her life, and she loves being an electrician. And she's evidently the star of her class. So I just think Voc schools are great.
Thank you. Seeing no further business before the council, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilor Ruggiero, second by Councilor Aiello. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, none, unanimous, adjourned.